Welcome to the, first we're going to start with the public hearing. We're going to open the public hearing for an update to the tax increment financing district to include broadband. So we are now in a public hearing. Any comments on the TIF district including broadband?
We have to do Article, before we do that, we got to do Article 1, moderator, for the public hearing.
No, that's special town meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. So a couple of questions. I guess the first one would be just a clarification. If we vote to approve this, it means that we can spend tax incremental finance dollars, not just in the zone, but townwide.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Correct. And does it mean that any other purpose for TIF monies is likewise approved, or is this something that is going to require each individual special town meeting? So let's say we wanted TIF money to go to sidewalks, and the sidewalks were outside the zone.
It has to be an approved TIF. It has to be a project approved in the TIF. So, we have a TIF filed with the state that says what we can use the money for. Broadband was just brought in to allow, as an allowable TIF cost.
And I don't think that we knew that we were allowed to use it yet, and we were waiting for the information, the confirmation from the attorney, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
And when we
But-
instituted the TIF, it didn't exist.
yeah, but in answer to your direct question, if it's not in there and it's not, nothing else is being added other than the broadband in this, if there's something else, we would have to then approve that to go into it.
Unless, of course, it was sidewalks within the TIF zone.
Correct.
Okay.
So sidewalks were
Are allowed.
already defined in there.
Okay. So my second question would be, can someone just bring me up to snuff as far as the history of TIF dollars used in the town? I believe it was used, the only thing I can recall is that the lighting down on 302,
Yep.
that was TIF dollars.
That was TIF dollars.
I think the water main,
Water main, actually even TIF dollars were used toward the Founder's Day and things like that, because that was called out in the TIF as allowable. Going back in the days when we had the Founder's Day and whatnot.
Yes.
The parade, the fireworks and all that stuff were approved inside the TIF. It's also approved for some use on fire equipment. So there's a number of things that were listed in there, but there was the 302 improvements were in there. That included the lighting and then some of the paving there.
Right. And so, but all of those, including Founder's Day, those expenditures through the TIF happened within the TIF zone?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, they were defined specifically in the TIF.
in the TIF.
So Founder's Day was in there, or a celebration for the town, even though it's town-wide?
Yes.
It was in the original TIF that monies were allowed for that?
Yeah,
Okay.
It was specifically delineated in there.
Yeah. Okay. And then lastly, I guess I'd just ask, I don't know if there's a finance person here, but can you tell me how much money is currently in the TIF?
It varies a bit year to year because it depends on the valuation, because it's the differential between the revised valuation, the new valuation, and what it was sequestered at when the TIF was set up. So Kurt has to rerun those figures each year to determine how much is going to be available in there in that next year.
Sure. So
And I
can
think this year it's just over 300,000.
330 or 331, if I remember correctly.
okay. Thank you.
Anybody else on the public hearing? I mean, we're not, yeah, we are in the public hearing. Can we get a quick rundown on the selection process for broadband?
I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully my laptop doesn't go toppling. Please let me know if everybody can see that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Up and bottom, right.
Okay, I'm here, thank you. First of all, my name is David Good. I'm with Mission Broadband, and I'm here tonight to give an overview of the RFP facilitation that was done for the Collabs group. It's going to be a very brief presentation, and then afterwards, as far as any decision process or the decision how it was made, will be handed over to the committee members that are here tonight for that explanation. So for those of you who don't know, the Collabs group was formed in 2021, and it makes up the cities of towns, of Casco, Naples, Sebago, Standish, and Raymond. Each one of those towns either provided one or more representatives to the committee. And the main goal was to identify and evaluate and recommend a reliable future-proof broadband internet access solution for these particular communities. And that was in partnership with the Greater Portland Council of Governments, and we have Clara here tonight who's representing them. If there's any questions for that. And just to let you know that GPCOG was the one who hired Mission Broadband to conduct and facilitate this RFP process. The criteria was based on several meetings with the Collab group. We, as Mission Broadband, compiled the RFP. We issued the RFP in September of 2022, and we issued it to the following companies: Spectrum, Consolidated, Sebago Fiber, GWI, and a company called Certex.
Can I butt in just for a second?
Sure, please.
So this is Kevin Woodbury, 20 Egypt Road. I'm on the committee along with Rolf, and when you say compiled the RFP, that was based totally on the input from
Yes, sir.
the members from the towns. They didn't suggest anything, they just helped us compile it into a, readable, status of what we wanted. So
Yeah.
I may jump in every now and then.
Yeah, no, that's fine, because I actually should stipulate the fact that when we are hired, we've been hired by many municipalities throughout New England, and we always take a neutral stance. We do not recommend, we do not lean or suggest, we just give the data that's collected from this RFP responses, we compile it, and we present it, and that's our role. So thank you for that, Kevin, because it is important to note that we are a neutral party in all of this. Excuse me. So we got responses from the companies that I just listed. The committee decided to interview the following companies: Consolidated, Spectrum, Sebago Fiber, and GWI. Important to note that GWI removed themselves from the process after their last interview, based on the fact that they did not see, for them, a business case to go forward. So they removed themselves, leaving the last three respondents. Now, the committee conducted a full evaluation, and I am part of a lot of these types of meetings, and the due diligence that was done, it might have taken a long time, but it was done fairly, and it was done with a lot of analysis, and a lot of discussion. Excuse me. So based on the review of all the proposals, the development of and review of an RFP compliance matrix, which we delivered by compiling all the information we delivered to the committee members, and the committee members, I think, Kevin, you'll speak to a little bit to that. And then we also based it on the interviews that were conducted. The committee, in 8/17/2023, had their decision meeting. And from this point on, I'm going to let either Rolf or Kevin address the process by which the selection was given.
So the,
Yeah, I'll let Rolf go ahead, and I'll be here to answer any
you
technical.
could jump in as needed.
What
I
we
mean,
figured, or what we felt about from a technical,
Right.
customer service and other standpoint.
so the process that we use, we had the RFP that was developed inside the group. coalition and whatnot pulled that together with the help of the consultants, so that we had a package that was all encompassing, that covered all the areas that all the various towns wanted to have in there, so that there would be, so that everyone was looking at the same information so they could make the same bid. When those bids came back in, we then had an initial round of interviews with each of the bidders to get some further information from them. And then from there, if they had any changes that they wanted to do, they could make those. We then asked Broadband to come up with, to make a sheet for us, a compliance matrix, which was, it was not, there was no editorial on their part. It was just taking the pieces from the various proposals so that we could look at that in kind of a short form to make sure that where someone was compliant or non-compliant, and any notes that the bidders had on there. So it gave us kind of a spreadsheet to work from there. We then held some additional discussions with the bidders to make sure that they had given us everything that we had, but we had certain criteria that we were highly energized on, and Kevin could go on that on the technical side, but I mean, customer service was one, but from the technical aspects, that was a very high criterion item. And when we did this initially, we had the bid packages come in two pieces. We did not have the financial package in the original bid package. We had that as a separate item, so we could review independently without looking at any pricing the technical aspects, because what we were concerned with at that point was, what's the town going to get that's going to be able to last out 10, 15, 20 years out into the future and give us what we wanted. So after we went through those areas, then ultimately we looked at some of the cost side, but the bigger areas were the technical sides, and Kevin can go into that.
Well, I think actually, I'm going to sort of speak for all the members in that coalition. The biggest thing we looked at, number one, was customer service. Because that's, and I'll say this blatantly, is that's where we're lacking right now with our provider. And so we put a lot of dependencies on different areas of customer service, so people could know exactly what they're expected to get and what they actually did get. When we specified people could get online and see what's been happening over the last year or the last month or whatever, to find out what the service has been. And so we rated customer service as one of the biggest items, and that was agreed upon by all the members of all the towns. And the second thing was the technology compliance, which pretty much everybody met the technology compliance. And so everybody scored pretty evenly in that category. And the last thing was the ability to work with the vendor. And I call that collaboration. We wanted to have anybody that's the IT management of the town needs to work with the network engineers, not a call center, to be able to figure out what's going on, what the problems are, how the network is designed. We don't, we want to work together with the people that are going to put the network in and make sure it's designed correctly, and make sure that any changes that take place, we're notified, and any problems that happened, we're notified. So those are the three areas that I, say that all the towns agreed completely on, and it was a unanimous vote in the end. So if anybody has any questions on those things, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Thank you, Kevin.
And I do want to also point out, I mean, this was not a quick series of questions and things like that. The whole process ended up taking us a little bit over 2 years. So I mean, there was a lot of give and take from between the towns, between to the questioning to the vendors and things like that. So there was no slam dunk decision made. It was done to try and get the best system we could get for the towns.
Sarah?
My name is Sarah Davis, 85 Tenney Hill Road in Raymond. I'm also Vice President of Market Development with Consolidated Communications. And I thank you for letting me have a few minutes here and to speak on behalf of my company and as a resident of the town of Raymond. So all of what was said I agree with. I have been working in broadband and broadband expansion in rural communities, mostly in Maine, but throughout a 22-state footprint for over 17 years. I have partnered with local governments, state governments, and federal governments to bring broadband to the most rural areas of Maine, including islands and mountains. For me, the key here is that I am very supportive of a change to a TIF that indicates that money can be spent on broadband. Broadband is an important infrastructure that will help Raymond and other communities get into the future. My concern here is a simple one. There was an RFP put out. The process was fair. I agree with all that's been said. There was plenty of collaboration. There was plenty of indication on the towns working together and how they evaluated the RFP process. The problem is that the RFP that was put out was for a 5-town full fiber to the prem solution for every single resident in all of the towns. And what I understand that the town of Raymond is taking up today, and please correct me because I've tried to make sure I understand completely, is that a fiber optic ring with redundant fiber entrances to 2 buildings in town with possibly a 3rd leg out to a tower. That's a very different animal than what was originally proposed. And so my point in my email that I sent, which I believe was included in the packet, and being here today is that we should proceed with the TIF and the change to the TIF to allow broadband, but we should evaluate very carefully that we have the best solution for what we are seeking today, not what CoLab originally put out. Right? We're not tied to other towns. The pricing for other towns isn't impacted by our pricing. Really what you're looking at is a diverse fiber optic ring. As I said in my email, my company took that back after I spoke with Kevin, I would say for about an hour-ish. Tried to understand what we were doing, exactly what the proposal was. And as I indicated in writing, we believe that we can do that for half the price because it's a simple redundant ring. We currently have a building. We have all the optronics. We would not need co-location in the fire station. And so what I'm asking the town as a taxpayer is to make sure that you evaluate that you have the solution for exactly what you're seeking now at the best price, because a solution to a municipality or a business, as you're really considered, is a much different solution than a residential offering and what comes with that. Dark fiber is something very different than lit services and what comes with that. And you're seeking dark fiber, 12 dark fibers on that redundant route. So that was my point in my email. I also want us to think about how we're going to utilize a network to get everyone in the town of Raymond served. I think what Sebago Fiber does is amazing. I think they've done an amazing job on Fry Island. I worry about the size and financing and ability to expand to places like where I live with Tenney Hill, probably one of the hardest places to reach in Raymond, certainly very far from the proposed ring. And I question if I will ever see the benefits of this fiber optics up into my house. And as I understand it, in what you're approving today, there is no commitment with respect to that next connection that's ultimately going to bring fiber to me and the residents in my neighborhood. So thank you for your time. And again, I just really encourage you to make sure you're making good use of this money and that we're getting the best solution for exactly the service that we're trying to get today, not what was put out, I think, over a year ago. Am I correct about that? Over a year ago, that included multiple towns and was a much different solution. Thank you. Is there any questions? I should say that. Super.
Questions? So in the Warren article on this, does it specifically name Sebago Fiber?
The warrant article, you mean for town meeting in June?
Yes.
Okay, let me look. Melanie will need to look that up. Can you get into the S drive, please?
Does anyone remember?
And town clerk.
No, it does not.
I don't believe so, no.
It's
I think it was a dollar
authoring
amount.
expenditures up to.
Oh, I did put the articles in your e-packet. It'll just take a minute on a phone to get from here to you. Link codes.
I don't think it did.
Anyone remember which one it was?
It's,
Article 27.
No.
Oh, no, I only put the ones for the ordinance changes in.
Yep.
Those are ones you haven't done a public hearing on.
Teresa, you have it in front of you?
I do.
What, can you just read it?
Sharice Keach, Finance Director for the Town of Raymond. So Article 27, referendum question, why shall the Town of Raymond, the town, 1, approve a capital project including engineering and design costs, transaction costs, construction costs, and other expenses reasonably related thereto the project, consisting of the installation of a municipal fiber ring to connect all municipal buildings at an estimated cost of $667,000. 2, appropriate the sum of $667,000 plus any additional premium to provide for the cost of the project. 3, authorize the town treasurer and the chair of the SelectBoard to issue general obligation securities of the town, including temporary notes, in anticipation of the sale thereof, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $667,000 plus any additional premium to fund the project. And 4, delegate the town treasurer and the chair of the select board the authority and discretion to fix the dates, maturities, interest rates, denominations, calls for redemption with or without premium, form, and other details of said securities, including authority to execute and deliver the securities on behalf of the town.
Okay, so nowhere in there does it specify.
It does not.
Okay, thank you.
We have a hand raised on Zoom.
Okay,
Kurt.
Kurt, go ahead.
I know it's a public hearing. Am I okay to make a comment? I'm
Yep.
not a
Yep, go
not a
ahead.
voter. So I just wanted to mention that this is that the expenditure of broadband in the TIF district is really a separate issue from whatever broadband projects the town may or may not do in the future during the life of the TIF. You know, I just am afraid that there may be some sidetrack issues going on. You know, this is basically this agenda item for the TIF is simply to give the town the ability to use TIF funds for broadband purposes. It's a separate and distinct thing from any particular bid award or contract or project. And so I just wanted to try to untangle those two things a little bit.
Well, Kurt, the reason I did that is because I'm trying to condense the hearing tonight. So we have a separate item on that. So I figure I'd just bring it up into this public hearing.
Okay.
So we can do away with it and go to a special town meeting. But
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I've participated in several of these TIF hearings, and sometimes these types of issues can confuse people a little bit when it comes to the TIF itself. So.
Well, I'm glad you're keeping an eye on me. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Kevin?
Sharice brought up an excellent point, and that's what it is. It's all of the municipal locations. It's not 2 buildings. It's a 14-plus mile ring that encompasses every single municipal location. And there are several critical locations in there. There's like 5 critical locations that you want to have for emergency usage and if things fail around. So, but we have, I think it's almost, I can't remember how many it is, but it's more than 14 miles of fiber, 12 strands. I just want to clear that.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else? Yep.
Grace Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. I'm trying really hard to not be confused, so hopefully you can help with this. So the amount that Sharice just read for what will be voted on in June, will that be less if TIF money is then used for this project, whatever the project ends up being?
No.
No.
It's
From a
the same
practical
amount of money,
standpoint,
yeah.
no, it'll be the same amount of money, but what will happen is the TIF will pay the bond payment. So,
Pull it out of a different
so
spot.
it won't affect the price of the project. What it will affect is forward budgeting, because if we take money, if we use TIF money to pay it, then it won't be in the budget, it'll come out of the TIF. So the payment of the bond will be done from the TIF, but the total dollars spent will still be the same, would still be the same, if that's answering your question.
That's one question. I can ask another. So what I was just listening to when Sarah Davis was speaking, so it sounds like there's a potential that that cost could be less, that what is in the town warrant to be voted on in June is based on this study that has been done with this particular company. Is that accurate or is that inaccurate? In other words, it could maybe cost less. And so what does that mean then?
Yeah, I mean, the warrant is up to 667. You know, so that money, that figure came out of an estimate from Sebago Fiber.
Okay. So what are the steps should this pass, which, I mean, who wouldn't want to be able to use the TIF money for broadband? I understand that. But then how is that decision made, or when is that decision made, and who makes that decision as to exactly which company is going to be used? Is there any further RFP done, given that it sounds like the project originally with the RFP was described differently than what it ends up being? Does that make sense the way I asked it? Or are you confused now?
No.
No, okay.
If I'm correct, I mean, the select board has to finalize that bond payment and, you know, decide who the vendor is. But I would say it's pretty much been decided by the collab people that Sebago Fiber has the best service and the best possibility of doing what needs to be done.
Okay, but again, was I not clear in understanding that initially the RFP that went out is different from what the project is now going to be?
Not necessarily, because the project also asked for a town-by-town breakdown.
Right.
Some people did not do that. Some people did. Some people just said, no, it's the whole project or nothing. Some people did do the breakout that was asked for.
Okay, but the town by town, I've just heard somebody say, that's the whole town as opposed to the municipal buildings? Is that what that was described as? I'm just kind of trying to understand the steps here.
Raymond specified, right from the start, we want
Kevin,
fiber ring.
please get up to the mic.
Sorry. Raymond specified that we wanted a fiber ring right from the start. I mean, from day one of this. Actually, I'm going to give a little history. This whole project, sorry to take some time, but the whole project started out with everybody wanted fiber to the home right off the bat, immediately, from every house, for every town. We realized that after we talked to GWI, that cost was going to be somewhere in, I don't know, was it $30 million, something like that, Rolf? And so we realized that wasn't going to fly. So we said we have to go with a phased approach. We still want to make sure over time that everybody gets what they need. And we specified, if you look, well, I don't have it with me, but in there it shows fiber to the home, fiber to the businesses, and fiber to the municipalities, and all the things that they had to meet for those things. That was in the RFP right from the start. So we worked along the best we could, and it boiled down to, again, it was customer service, it was being able to deliver the best possible technology, and working with the people in the towns who was going to collaborate the best. So.
Either?
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. This is new information, I guess I'm dealing with, but it's two separate issues, and I agree with what Kurt said, what Joe said, as far as what we're talking about tonight is really just, are we going to use the money in the TIF? Are we going to get approval from the state to use TIF money in order to fund fiber optic internet or dark ring, or however you want to describe it. I guess my question would be this one. The warrant article already has up to $600 and some odd thousand. Were we tonight not to authorize the town to use TIF money, then, and the voters were to then say in June that we do want the fiber optic, then we would go out through regular bonding in order to pay for this?
Yes.
Okay.
So it would cost the town more money in a sense, because your valuation for the TIF would be different.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
I mean, you're still going to go through regular bonding. It's just that
How you pay
on
for
the
it.
balance sheet, we're going to pay those bond fees out of the TIF. Because, because the town, the TIF can't issue a bond. The town can issue a bond.
Thank you.
TIF is not an easy concept to understand. So people hear the word TIF, but don't actually understand how it works, including me to a certain extent. And I've been dealing with it for quite a while. Anybody else? Okay, I will close the public hearing. We will now go into a special town meeting.
No, not yet. I'll let Melanie come up and do
Melanie.
her bit.
Yeah.
She needs to open the meeting.
Okay. Do you want to use my microphone?
Good evening and welcome to the special town meeting for the town of Raymond. In the name of the state of Maine, I am hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of this town of Raymond, qualified by law to vote in town affairs, to meet at the broadcast studio located at 423 Webbs Mills Road in said town on Tuesday, May 7th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. to act on Articles 1 and 2 as set out below. Article 1, to choose by written ballot a moderator to preside at said meeting.
I make a motion to nominate Joe Bruno.
Second?
Any other
Motion to
nominations?
close nominations.
Second?
You need to vote on the closing.
Oh,
No,
I motion to close
a
You need
nominations.
to vote to close.
a vote to close the nominations.
You have to say that.
You have to-
I,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I move to close nominations.
No,
A motion
No.
to close
ask for a
nominations.
vote.
No, you need to say,
I need a
all in
motion.
all in favor of,
All in favor.
all in favor of closing nomination.
Okay, all in favor? Say nomination.
Yeah. Hold up your yellow card. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All
Okay.
right, any other?
These three, yeah.
Joe Bruno, it is unanimous. I will read you the oath. Raise your right hand and repeat after me, or no?
It's up to you.
Okay. So, I, Joe Bruno, do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state, so long as I shall continue a citizen thereof, so help me God. I do swear that I will faithfully discharge, to the best of my abilities, the duties incumbent upon me as a moderator of the town of Raymond for the May 7th, 2024 special town meeting, according to the Constitution and laws of the state, so help me God.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Article 2. First of all, I'm going to ask for unanimous consent to allow non-residents to speak during this meeting.
Yes.
Shall the voters of the town of Raymond, Maine, adopt the First Amendment to the Portland Natural Gas Transition System Municipal Development and Tax Increment Financing District. Such adoption to be pursuant to the following findings, terms, and provisions. Whereas the town of Raymond, the town, is authorized pursuant to Chapter 206 of Title 30A in the Maine Revised Statutes as amended, to amend previously established tax increment financing, TIF, districts and development programs within the town, and whereas the town designated the Portland Natural Gas Transmission System Municipal Development and Tax Increment Financing District, the district, and adopted a development program for the district on September 15, 1998, and March 20th, 1999, in order to capture the value of real and personal property improvements made within the district and to enable the use of TIF revenues for various municipal and other economic development projects, which received approval from the Maine Department of Economic and Community Development, DECD, on March 31st, 1999. Whereas amending the development program for the district will help to continue to promote economic development within the town and the surrounding region, improve and broaden the tax base of the town, and improve the economy of the town and the state of Maine, and specifically will allow the town the ability to use TIF funds for costs associated with broadband and fiber optics expansion projects. Whereas the Select Board has held a public hearing on May 7, 2024, upon at least 10 days prior notice published in the newspaper and general circulation within the town on the question of adopting the First Amendment to the development program for the district in accordance with the requirements of 30A MRS subsection 5226. And whereas the town has considered the comments provided to the public at the public hearing, both for and against the adoption of the First Amendment to the development program, if any, and whereas it is expected that approval will be sought and obtained from DECD, approving the First Amendment to the Portland Natural Gas Transmission System Municipal Development and Tax Increment Financing District and Development Program, the First Amendment. I'm not going to read any more, as it would take all day. So we are in the public hearing.
Move to adopt.
Have a
Second.
Second.
motion to approve, been seconded. Any comments? I hope you're not going to ask me to read the rest of it, Grace.
Do that. I don't want to. Never mind. I won't. No, seriously, Grace Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. A question that I probably should have asked before. So the reason to have a special town meeting for this, whereas in June we're just going to go in and vote on everything else that is in a warrant, is that stipulated in TIF language somehow, that you had to hold an in-person meeting in order to have this, or could this just have been added to the vote in June?
It did have to be approved at town meeting. Only the legislative body can make that decision. And the timing of this was such that we couldn't get it on the warrant in time to have it on the ballot. So the only other option was to have a special town meeting
Okay.
in order to have it ready for the voters if they do approve the bond.
Okay. I'm not trying to hold up all of this moving forward and happening, but I just find a little bit ironic that we've gone to just voting on a whole bunch of really important things in June and not having an in-person town meeting. I've made that comment before. I'll probably make it several more times if I have to, but, and again, to have an in-person town meeting for this and yet not have that for all of the other things that the town will be voting on. I just wondered about it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, and the June meeting is a town meeting.
I said in-person
Yes,
town meeting.
but it's the in-person part, yes.
Anybody else? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? The warrant passes. Okay, that's the end of the special town meeting.
Motion to close, right? To close it?
To adjourn.
The
Yeah, you,
town meeting is adjourned.
yes.
Okay. Now we're gonna go back to our regularly scheduled program. All right,
Motion,
start with the minutes from
yep,
April 8th.
motion to approve the minutes of April 8th.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous?
I wasn't there for the 26th.
You were?
What was the special one we just had? Was it the emergency one? I couldn't make it. Yeah.
I need a motion for April 26th.
Move the minutes from April 26th.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? One abstention.
I wasn't here.
Melanie? Teresa abstained. Okay.
Were you there?
Yeah.
That was the Zoom, right? Oh yeah, you were the first one in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Annual town meeting warrant. Articles for public hearing.
So we're back into the articles.
You had asked for a full public hearing of the annual town meeting warrant before, and that's where we're going to talk about the Public Works Garage, I believe.
But isn't this also, yeah, this is also on,
It's for everything, if
Yep.
anyone has any question on any article.
But we're really focusing on the Public Works Garage, correct?
There is a presentation for that, yes.
Okay. Why don't we go right to the presentation then?
Okay.
Owens, good to
Thank-
see you.
Yes, I think that's my cue.
Yes, it is.
Good evening. My name is Owens McCullough, civil engineer with Sebago Technics, here tonight on behalf of the town to introduce you to a little background on the Public Works Garage. With me is Mike Hayes of Grant Hayes, who is our architect, and to my left is Nathan, who most of you know is the Public Works Director. So I'll just sort of take you through this presentation, and it'll help introduce you to the Public Works Garage, the need, and where we're at with the project. So just real quick, just some quick introductions, some little background on existing conditions, programming needs, a little overview of the current Public Works facilities, what we're proposing to do for the proposed, and of course a conversation on cost, and then the timeline if the project were to go forward. So there's quite a team here, so I can't do all this myself. I bring in an architect. I also bring in mechanical, electrical, structural, HVAC, and plumbing engineer, and who's not on this list is the geotech SW Cole Engineering, who's done some geotechnical work. This team has done a number of public works garages, including Westbrook, South Portland. We just got bids back for Kennebunk within budget, so that was nice. And while I wasn't involved, Mike was involved with Sacco's Public Works and Wyndham's Public Works facilities. And then I also worked on one for Orno. So collectively, we've had a lot of experience in these, a lot of lessons learned, which we're bringing to the table to apply. So we hopefully it makes for a better project for the town. So usually what we'll start with when we look at a public works building, we want to understand what the condition is of the existing facilities. If it's more than one, how they've been working, what sort of operations do they have. And then we also undertake what we call a programming and needs study. That's where Mike Hayes to my right comes in. And it's really a comprehensive look at how public works functions. What are the needs and specific use for it? What we have found over the last several years since we've been looking at a number of public works facilities is most of the public works facilities are either spread out in different facilities or an older building, older facility, and that just hasn't kept pace with modern facilities. In some cases, I remember the South Portland facility, which half of it was condemned because they just, public works tends to be the silent, unseen group that just takes care of snow and plowing and everything else, but they also tend to have some of the most expensive equipment. Sorry, Nathan, a new plow truck is $300,000 these days. So we'll just take a few minutes to go through where Nathan is sort of distributed among different facilities. One is located at 387 Webb's Mills Road, not just down the street from us here. They have a portion of the building, it's about 4,200 square feet. I think the footprint's about 3,900. There's a small mezzanine on the building. This location, I think, had a series of 3 additions over the years, in 1980, 82, and 89, correct? I think I got that right. And it's masonry brick building, shingled roof. The parcel's about 7.8 acres, but it wraps up the Egypt Road. Years ago, we actually looked at a portion. Raymond Hill Road. Why did I say Egypt Road? Raymond Hill Road. And years ago, we actually looked at a portion of that land for a town office location. So that's this site.
When was that originally built?
1980.
80? Thanks.
Saying, 89.
No, that's an addition.
Yeah, I think it was.
The original building was 80. The first edition was 82 for 2 bays, and then the latest was the other 2 bays in 1989.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Sure. This is just a as-built floor plan that Mike measured out in the facility. Pretty simple, basic 1 bathroom, a mechanical room, a tank storage, and I've got a few interior pictures here from the next slide. So in the next slide shows the interior. Our mechanical, electrical, structural, plumbing engineer went through it. Mike went through it to look at it for a codes assessment. And what I'll start by saying is the building is old enough that codes, design standards change over time. The bathroom is not ADA compliant. The toilet's elevated. There's not enough turning space in it. There's no ventilation in the building per se. No air intake for supply air in the building. The plumbing fixtures, everything's pretty well aged. There is a good point that domestic hot water heater's in good shape. You barely know. Does that count, Nathan? We can keep that for you. We'll keep that as a memento. So our structural engineer goes through, and I think Sue had sent around the report. So I'm going to be careful when I say this. The building structure is in decent shape. However, if you touch it or renovate it or modernize it or expand on it, you'd have to bring it all up to current codes, which means basically that structure is probably not worth saving if you've got to bring it up to current codes. And my structural engineer loves to tell me, the snow loads, the lateral loads, the earthquake loads, everything had progressed over time. Codes get better based on empirical information they collect over time. And so this building just wouldn't sit with that. The shingles roof's about 15 years old, but he did note, and I saw it too, looks like a lot of fraying in the shingles, so I think they're pretty well at the end of their life expectancy. The next location is off Plains Road. So there's 2 buildings on that site already. One was a former sand and salt building that has been repurposed for cold storage that was reskinned. Great location for cold storage. And then about 2015, we constructed a new sand and salt storage building. And those buildings are the laminated arch in good shape and serving their needs. Nathan acquired a portable trailer from the government in about 2018. So for those who might remember when the military came in for, 2 years? And they did it was called the IRT program, Innovative Readiness Training. And they did a bunch of work at Camp Hines. And basically what happens is you provide the materials, they provide the labor, they provide the equipment. We got a tower out of it, right? Up there, which worked out great. and I still would not climb that thing. And I wouldn't go up in that lift. And then they also refurbished a fire pond for us, and then down at the rescue building, they redid the detention pond, which needed to be renovated. So we got all that work, we just had to provide the materials out of it. So it was a really good, valuable asset for the town. Since they were here for that long, they brought in a couple of portable trailers for the rotation of the troops, the National Guard that came in and out. When they left, Nathan seized on an opportunity and obtained a portable trailer, which he moved to the site and has used it as some basic crew space for his staff at the Plains Road site. This is the trailer that they brought in. Kind of interesting, it's kind of a big open bathroom, shower, military, right? And then a storage and a break room and a small office and staff room.
He's not kidding. There aren't any doors. There's nothing out there.
No.
It's a rather railroad style layout. So you walk through one room to get to another. So if you notice the break room on the right, as you walk through the storage area by the offices, you actually walk through the showers to get to the bathrooms. So there's not a whole lot of privacy afforded. And plus, a lot of fixtures have been pulled out. All those blank spaces that you see in the restroom were urinals and were stalls. So anyway, that's an overview.
But Nathan seized the opportunity, and it's worked out. So the cold storage, pretty basic, but it's a wonderful location just to put equipment and other items inside. So these are some pictures of it that shows the sand and salt building in the back, the cold storage, a few shots of the inside of the portable, the trailer. And as you would expect, I mean, this really doesn't adhere to much of any sort of what we would call life safety code, any sort of plumbing codes, ADA access. It was a temporary ad hoc means to provide some staff rooms. It does have heat, Nathan.
Yes, good heat.
And then we actually did have Allied go through it and Mike Hayes go through it, as Mike indicated, just so we knew what we have. Likely, I'll be honest, this building was never intended to be anything permanent or long-term, but it's worked well as a stopgap measure for a while. The last of their facilities is really an old fire building. Dennis, you were in that probably at one point, right? So it's been repurposed for Nathan's office and Parks and Recreation. My understanding is that if Nathan moves out to a new building, that this would be dedicated for parks only in this location. So again, the age of the building, 1970s, consideration of the life safety, ADA and no ADA bathrooms, really no crew or locker space, and they've pretty much utilized every square inch of it. Nathan, sorry, I put a picture of your office up there. This is where I turn it over to Mike Hayes, the architect. He's going to walk you through the programming and needs and talk to you a little bit about that, and then he'll take you through some floor plans, building elevation, building styles. The building we're proposing is very fundamental and functional, very consistent with the other buildings we've been using in other communities. But Mike, I don't want to say any more and take your thunder. You keep telling me, I take it all away, so I'm going to give you a chance tonight.
Thanks, Owens. The first part of the process that we embarked on is to determine what needs to go in a building and how big it is what we call the programming and needs assessment. That's where we sit down with the folks who are going to utilize the building and talk about and find out what they need in the building. So this particular programming assessment identifies 4 major areas of use. The first one at the top left is the administrative functions, and those spaces include Public Works Director's office, the administrative assistant, restroom, break room for the crew, custodial room, locker rooms for both men and women that include bath facilities, and some small amount of circulation to move about in those spaces. Through the sizing of those components, we came up with about 1,500 square feet of spaces needed to function efficiently and within code. The second major portion of the building is the actual work bays that the mechanics will utilize. In that space, you've got a room for bulk fluids that are utilized out on the work floor for transmission fluid, oil, antifreeze, all those kinds of things that are utilized for maintaining the trucks. You've got parts room for parts, secured tools room for those tools that want to be not just laying around anywhere. There is some storage. We need an IT closet or room. We've got a safety aisle that would have the emergency wash, the eye wash, and the slop sink for. I've got a restroom, mechanic's office, and then there are 4 bays for maintaining all the trucks and other apparatus, bulldozers and graders and all those kind of things. And then there's some circulation space, and as I mentioned, the last item there is the safety lane for getting back and forth from one end of that 4-bay area to the other. That amounts to just under 6,000 square feet, about 5,880. The third portion of the building is what we call the storage bays, where vehicles would be stored, staged for winter events. Not only would the mechanics bays, if they're not full, be utilized for that, but the storage bays would also be utilized for that. It's typically where long-term projects are queued up for maintenance purposes, and also, as I said before, staging for storm readiness. And there are 5 bays there, all of equal size, for 3,960 square feet. And then the very end of the building is the wash bay function and utility. So we've got a wash bay in there that is a single access, so you go in, wash, and come out. You'll see that in the plan in a moment. You need a small room for the equipment that pressurizes and runs the wash bay, and we've got a water room for water entrance and storage. There's a general storage room, and then there's a mechanical and electrical room for all of the panels, fire alarm system, and all those, and all the heating and cooling things that are needed. Above that area, you'll see on the plan, we've got a storage mezzanine also, just utilizing that space as much and as efficiently as possible to keep the footprint as compact and as square foot efficient as we can. The square footage for the needs are 14,940 square feet. Unfortunately, the 4,740 number is
Should be
not correct. It's the actual amount of square footage that you presently have is 8,162 square feet.
But that's when you combine all the buildings.
Yes.
That's when you take all the 3 remote facilities and you add all that square footage up, you have 8,162 square feet of space now, of which recreation takes up some of that. So it's not totally all yours. The delta is 6,778 square feet of shortage of what you actually need. Again, be a little higher because Parks and Rec has got some of that too. So you're working at a 45% undersized amount of facility total of what you really should have. So if you want to go to the floor plan slide. So this floor plan.
I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to skip out of this and open up the PDF. Hopefully it'll be a little easier to read.
Can I ask you a question real quick while he's doing that?
Sure.
So what I'm hearing you say is, should they stay in the same building now that they currently have, any changes to it, because it changes the footprint, would all have to be brought up to date with everything, with the codes, everything. Should they hire a female, mechanic, secretary, whatever, you have to have all that also brought into this too, correct? To be able to bring it up to
Correct.
standards and everything else. And right now, it's not.
Right. Let's pick on the trailer.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, totally ADA non-compliant.
Yep.
Totally Universal Plumbing Code, MUBEC code non-compliant.
Right.
And don't get me started on all the other pieces like the energy code and all those other things, because that's, so yes, that trailer is, if you were to try to touch it, that would be a problem.
Okay.
And then, I'm sorry.
No. So saying all of this, and this is, I know this is really pulling from left field on this one too, is to bring everything up to make any kind of changes at all, especially roof, everything. What are you talking possibly money to do all this stuff? Because any changes at all to add on another bay, widen a bay, new bathroom, ADA, all of that, we're talking major money to bring stuff up to date, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not even sure you could do anything with the trailer.
Yeah, the trailer, you really
The
can't
trailer's
touch.
throwaway.
I don't even think you can do anything with that bathroom in that garage right there now either. I mean,
Right, well,
yeah, but
if you, let's say you decide, okay, we need more bays, because that's a major efficiency, and the bays aren't even sized correctly for the size of
right.
the stuff you're working on. Once you touch that building, from a structural standpoint, all of it needs to be brought up to code for seismic.
I did.
Wind loads, the structural codes alone, the reinforcing that's in those CMU walls is not up to date.
Okay.
So the amount of effort it would take to reinforce what's there is it would be far more efficient to tear it down and start it.
Right.
So.
Okay, no, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I'll zoom in. I'll play. I'll zoom in for you. You tell me where to move
Okay.
it.
Well, let's start on the left in the purple area. So this is okay. So typically I'll do an overview first. When you look at designing a public works facility, you try to compartmentalize a couple of things. Wet areas like the wash bay, you definitely want that to be not, open to the work areas. The bays in which you're doing mechanical work and storing vehicles, there can be a lot of dust involved there, so you do try to compartmentalize that if possible. Definitely the living area, what we would call the administrative area, that definitely wants to be kept separated with partitioning for a number of reasons. One is just occupancy separation from fire code, but also noise and just general cleanliness. So the area on the left is the administrative offices that has the purple border around it. And we have on the left is where you would come in. There's a vestibule. There you go. There's a vestibule where you come in, and you are then in a secured vestibule by which the admin would acknowledge you, say hi, what are you here for? And then based on that, someone would either come to the vestibule to talk to you, answer your question, or bring you in to the next portion of the building, which again, the actual secured locations of doors and things would need to be worked out a little further. But in any event, you've got a secured vestibule so that everybody inside is safe, no matter who comes in the building. So all the perimeter openings would be card access or fobbed or somehow secured, so nobody gets in that's not supposed to be in there. To the lower part of that, with the admin, you've got the public works director, and you've got a toilet for them to use. The public works director's office is large enough so that there can be in-office meetings. So there's a room for a desk, there's a room for a table for people to meet as needed, or should there be need for an intern or a second person, that office is large enough to accommodate that. I'm going to go north, call it north. This is the break room area, so there's a large enough table for 14 people. And that would be utilized for some staff training and also just general coordination meetings. There's a kitchenette there, and it's, refrigerator, range, sink, and then there's some room for crock pots and such, as typical for the needs, microwaves and crock pots, enough countertop for that. That's down on the lower left. You can see where it says crock pots down there.
I like that.
So that way it's the crew.
You're cooking, Nathan. I ain't
Crew
eating.
is well taken care of on their own. And then there's a section on the upper right where there's vending machines and a second refrigerator as needed. So typical, these are the things that we typically have seen evolve in Public Works needs. To the further north of that is the men's and women's lockers, and each one of those locker rooms, they are separated, and there's a full bathroom which has a toilet, a sink, and a shower in each of those locker rooms for changing and cleaning up. There is a custodial closet in there also that, centralized in the areas of that are going to have the most need for that. As you move to the right, the green bordered area is what we would consider the mechanic work functions. There are 4 bays here, all of equal size. These are drive-through bays, so highly efficient. You can bring vehicles in from either end. You can cycle them through in a single direction. If they're debilitated in such a way where you need to do that, you can't pull it out, but you can push it through. So those are highly functional. There's a crane on the front 2 bays. As you can see, there's a horizontal line going across the bay 1 and bay 2, bay 2 and 4 rather. So there'll be a crane there for lifting heavy stuff. And then there's some portable lifts that will be used in bay 7, which is the top right bay. To the left of that, your other left. There you
Yeah,
go.
sorry, parts
So
and bulk fluid.
This is the bulk fluids room on the outside walls.
Ring finger, man. Ring finger.
So fluid service providers can come up, fill those from the outside. They don't have to come into the building at all. It's pretty much how it's done these days.
That's called the Westbrook model.
That's the.
That's where we came up with it.
And then there are hoses that go overhead to a reel in the center column and other locations, so that those hose drops are for air, oil, lubricant, all that kind of stuff. So it's real handy to go into each bay from that center column there. Their parts room is just below the bulk fluids room. So again, parts that are needed for repairing vehicles right off the floor from an efficiency standpoint. And then the other orange area you see there is the secured tools and general storage that are needed for the mechanics. Down below that, further south, there's a bathroom and a mechanic's office for being able to document receiving orders, order slips, everything that's done in those work bays. That bathroom down there backs up to the bathroom in the administrative area, so there's a very efficient layout from a plumbing standpoint, 1 plumbing wall, and very, very efficient in that sense. Next bay to the right, the orange bay, the orange 4 bays, that is the vehicle storage area that's where most of you want to keep your product inside in the winter as much as possible to keep wear and tear down and to extend their life, and that also is the staging for event, whether it's a windstorm, snow blizzard, whatever it is. That would be where the vehicles would be staged and ready to go when it's time to go out and take care of the roads. There are these 4 bays are single access only from the front, and then in the back right, that orange area in the back right, that's also general storage for pieces and parts that may be put on or taken off, small stuff on those vehicles that are there. The last bay to the furthest right is the blue area, is the wash bay function. So this is it's a 30 by 60 bay. It's large enough to get a truck in there that's got everything on it, wash it down, clean it off, undercarriage wash it, whatever's needed to be done, tilt the body up, clean that out, all of that stuff, so that those vehicles will last longer than not. It's very important to make sure that they're cleaned off well if you want to protect that $300,000 single vehicle investment. Again, as mentioned in the programming, those two blue rooms in the back are the equipment room and the water room. The yellow area is the mechanical and electrical room, and the waste oil area where any waste oil that's collected would be utilized to also help heat the facility. The mechanical and electrical room would include, all of the usual suspects, the electrical panel, the IT, the entrance anyway. Our fire alarm system would be in there, and all the mechanical things that are needed for providing the heating and air conditioning. So that's a general look at the layout. We have separated those black and white dashed lines that you see. Those are proposed 2-hour firewall separation walls that go from slab to roof structure to compartmentalize all of those functions so that they are separated, because they are at different occupancies and different levels of, I'll call it, hazard or use. The finishes that we're looking at in here, really Spartan in the sense of from a standpoint of expense, efficiency, and maintainability. The floors are all polished concrete floors. All of the walls in the administrative area are painted sheetrock, vinyl base, FRP, which is fiberglass reinforced panel. It's that stuff you see in restaurants and kitchens and heavy-duty industrial spaces, just so that we're not looking at tile on walls and floors, because that's just a maintenance nightmare in the long run for this kind of use. So, suspended acoustical ceilings so we can get up there and get at stuff. LED lighting. On the right, on the outside of the purple area, everything in there is, again, like I said before, it's all polished concrete floors. The bottom parts of a lot of the walls out there are going to have either FRP or 8-foot-high painted plywood on top of durable, what we call dense glass, very durable material, so that plywood 8-foot-high layer affords them, to be able to hang things on the walls on a very durable and long-lasting surface. The wash bay, of course, will be a lot of FRP and epoxy paint in there, because that's going to be a high moisture area. If we want to go to
Those floor drains?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Can I ask, is your sound on? Somebody just texted from on Zoom.
Yeah, it is a directional mic, so if you can point it more to you, maybe.
They're just saying it's kind of muted, one of them, so.
Does the green light mean I'm on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, maybe I need to sit closer.
Yeah, thanks.
So before I go on to the next one, if I could add just a couple of quick things to Mike. So we're proposing there would be radiant floor heat in the mechanics bay and the storage bay, 2 zones. That is very, very efficient and effective way to heat that area, heats the slab mass. We find that all the public works facilities we've done radiant floor heat in those areas. It dries the slab, it melts the equipment underside, very efficient way to do it. The office space would be VRF heat pump systems in that space. We'd probably have high efficiency condensing gas boilers with propane tanks to heat the slab for the radiant floor heat. It's not really efficient to do that, all electric. And then the wash bay would be the same, and there'd be whole building ventilation. As my mechanical engineer reminds me, we have to have ventilation in the whole building, NOx sensors. We have to have makeup air, energy recovery units. There's a whole host of requirements that we have in there. And then we would have concrete up 4 feet?
4 feet.
4 feet off the
kicker
floor,
wall.
a kicker wall around the whole building. So some of the some of the metal buildings you will see out there, they run the structure all the way down, and they don't have the concrete wall. It doesn't work with where you got vehicles and equipment moving around. So we have that wall. We do it on all of them, and then the inside is. I'm sorry, Mike. I can't let you have it all.
We'll wait for the elevations for that.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, the reason for that concrete kicker wall, again, is because these guys plow right up to the edge of their building all the way around it. So if you got metal, not a good idea.
Is there floor drains in the wash bay anyplace else, or just that?
There are floor drains in the wash bay. There are trench drains in all of the work bays, and even in the staging bay, there's trench drains.
Okay.
And then there are floor drains in any wet area, any of the restrooms, custodial, in the administrative area, and locker rooms. Yep. So this is what we proposed the building would look like. I'm gonna grab a little water here.
Can you talk about where it's going to be sited on the lot?
I have a whole slide for that, Joe, coming up.
Can't wait.
I knew you could ask that.
So, so if we look at the
So hurry up, we want to get to my stuff.
Okay, all right. So if we look at the top elevation, this would be what would be considered the front side, facing the rest of the operations of and you'll see it on the site plan. The left-hand side is the administrative portion, which we've kept low because we don't need high bay there. Save some money there. And then on the right, those are all the work bays that you see. You'll see that horizontal line about 4 feet off what would be the bottom of the drawing. That's our kicker wall that goes all the way around the top, around the base rather. And then above that are insulated metal panels for the walls and insulated metal panels for the roof. And then over all of anywhere we have an opening, we have 2 rows of ice and snow guards to keep stuff from falling on people and vehicles. The 2 middle elevations are the ends. The one on the left is the primary entrance, because you can see a little canopy over the door there. And then the one on the right is the wash bay end. We've got a couple of windows up there to dump some light into the wash bay. This egress door on the left, and then the doors on the right of the mechanical room and the other egress door. And then the bottom drawing is what we would consider the back of the building. And then there's the 2 drive-through bays are shown there with the overhead doors. The people door to the right is that safety alley we talked about, that safety aisle. And then on the left, there's a small overhead door that goes into that general storage room, so that if there's a pickup truck needs to move it, small stuff in and out of there, there's a small 8x8 overhead door for that. In 3D, this is what it would look like with this concrete bottom, gray metal panels for the walls, green for the roof, and the overhead doors are typically white by standard color. You can get other colors, but they cost more, so nobody wants them anyway, except for, well, I shouldn't put it that way. There are certain people that like red doors, which we've done a lot of those for fire stations. So,
Sorry, I got to get back to the PowerPoint.
so that's the building. Yes.
Yeah, where is the people?
Can you please go to the mic?
They can't hear you on
They
TV.
can't hear you.
John Fasella, Raymond Fire Department, 19 Loon Lodge Road, Raymond. Where is the people door on the rear of the building? I didn't quite get that.
So if you go back to the floor plan.
Sure. Put the cursor on that.
So there's, which particular one are you looking for, John?
Well, I'm just wondering how people would access the back of the building besides using a bay door.
Okay, so there's on the left side, we've got the 2 doors down there. And then on the right side, there's, on the right end elevation, all the way to the end.
Here?
So you've got down, all the way down. So there's one door there, and that door actually connects all the way through to the middle wall, all the way. So you've got a remote point of egress here. You've got a remote point of egress.
Go ahead, you want
here.
to, up here, so, okay, there,
So
yeah.
there's 2 remote points of egress there with connectivity from the base to the base of the wash bay.
There's one there.
And then you've also got the main entrance, which is the 3rd point of egress. So we've basically got 3 points of egress out of the facility.
So from 3 sides, you can either access the building or people can egress from the building?
Exactly.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Don't you have 4
You have
egresses?
4.
You have one
Yeah,
down
there's
at the
1,
bottom,
2,
1, 2,
3.
1 in the back.
There is
4.
There is one down at the mechanic. So the safety aisle has 2 egresses, and then you've got the main entrance and the wash bay. So you're right.
Yeah,
You've
you
got 4.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, you're on.
Okay, one thing to note, when we put this out, the design will require that the roof structure be designed to accommodate solar. We're not proposing to install solar, but it's a real inexpensive lift to require the structure to accommodate the solar. And then the electrical would be required to have enough capacity in the panel to accommodate solar if we did that.
How is this building facing?
I'll show you that.
I already asked that.
All right, you guys win. I'm going to the site plan. So here's the orientation of the building. So the sand and salt sheds here.
If you ask it twice, they do.
I gotta ask him twice to get an answer from him, right?
Thanks a lot.
So you notice the trailer is going.
Well, that's because the trailer's where the building's going to be.
Yes.
Okay.
So the trailer sits about right in here. This is the access down into the site. There's that loop road if you've been down inside of it. And so basically where the trailer is where we're going to place the building. We'll provide 360 access all the way around the building. There's about 35 feet, I guess, between, maybe it's 40. We moved it a little bit. So we provided a pretty good space between the sand and salt shed and the building, but basically providing access all the way around the building. A couple of things on the site, it's fairly level out there right now. We did have some geotech done because, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. As we would expect, it's basically sands and gravels, a little bit of fill that was brought in that would have to be removed to have the proper foundation foot. But the geotech is thinking there would probably be some sort of spread footing type design for the building. So nothing crazy. Some buildings like my Kennebunk that we just bid, that has to be preloaded for almost 6 months because of soft clays. We don't have that here, so that's a good thing. That actually adds a lot of cost. So that's good. That's why we do geotech up front. Then the site would have some catch basins to collect some water, just because I'm blocking water. It'd go back to, actually, when we did, there's already a stormwater system in the back. Remember, this is down in the bottom of the gravel, of an old gravel pit, fairly deep to groundwater. So we'll run the stormwater down out back and allow it to infiltrate back into the groundwater. A couple of new things to note. There's no public sewer out here. So the septic system's over here, which has capacity for the domestic use. However, I can't put floor drains, wash bay water into the septic system. All right. So what happens is, and this happens quite a bit on the public works facilities because they're always sort of in the rural areas. We run them through an oil water separator, and then they go into a holding tank. And that holding tank gets pumped on probably a 3,500 gallon holding tank that gets pumped on a periodic basis to remove that water. We run it through the oil water separator because the oil water separator would have to be dealt with by somebody like Clean Harbors or one of those environmental companies. But then after the oil's removed and it goes into the septic tank, most wastewater treatment plants will just take that. You call in whoever your favorite septic hauler is, and they pump it out and haul it off, and they dispose of it.
There's no way to make like a gray water system to put it back in?
What's that?
There's no way to make like a gray water system to get it back just in?
Oh, from the wash bay?
Yeah, I mean, well, how much water is that?
Well,
You're pumping out.
It is,
How many
it's
times?
not as often as, we have one up in Orno, and it's not all that frequent. The thing about the wash water systems, the folks that I know that have them aren't always very happy with them because they take a lot of maintenance to run those.
The recirc systems.
Yeah, we put in an automated system in South Portland, and we got an FTA grant for it, but if you had talked to the former Public Works Director, I think he would have wished they didn't do it. So we tend to go with the holding tanks, just in the long run, it tends to be more cost effective, even though we're pumping periodically. That's a good question.
So your answer on, I think the question was how often they're gonna have to pump the holding tank. The two towns that I talked to that have newer buildings that have holding tanks, one's got a 3,500 gallon tank, the other one's got a 6,000 gallon tank. 3,500 gallons is about once a year, he said.
Depends on how much you wash your equipment.
How much you wash trucks.
When it's a shiny new wash bay, it might be more.
A new toy.
So that's a site plan, pretty basic layout, fits well within the site, be paved around it. We're gonna cut a little bit in, it's already partially cut, there's that side slope. We'll cut into that a little bit more to make sure we can have full access around the building. I'm sorry, looks like Dennis.
The south roof,
Can you go to the mic,
solar?
please?
if it's on the map, I'm just asking to look for
This is the third time.
the north-south. Well, the solar panel, that's all, I was wondering what the direction is.
That's what I was asking too.
So this is sort of a southwesterly face on it. This is more of a easterly face. We've talked about twisting the building a little bit, but if this goes forward, I will have some conversation with somebody like Revision Energy just to talk a little bit about the orientation. I don't have a lot of room. We actually looked at twisting it 90 degrees from where it is now, and that created another set of challenges. It pushed the building
Close to the property line.
yeah. So this orientation seemed to be optimum, but it's a great question, Dan.
How far off is that property line on that back west corner?
So this is,
It's pretty close, isn't it? No, the west side.
well, it's 60 feet. Which one?
Right off the back.
This corner right here?
Yeah.
Well, 60 feet's an inch, so it's probably closer to 100 feet off the back corner.
Okay. And who's our butter there? Is that the
Camp Hines?
Camp Hines?
No, that's Ken, I can't think of his last name, he's one of the custodians up here at the school.
Blue truck?
Yes, yep.
If you can't turn the building and you keep it the same, can they clear some spots to put like panels up on the ground?
Well, we have to be a little careful around that because we're in a gravel pit, we're down low, and then the solar guys want you to cut the trees for shade management. So I cut the trees, now I lose my buffer. So it's
Right.
you know, I have this pretty large area up front here on the, like it's up on the hill. I suppose you could cut further up on the hill and just run the electrical down over the hill and do something up on the hill, but then it
Right,
starts,
no.
and as you drive down Plains Road right now without any leaves on the tree, and you look down and you can see the facility.
Yep.
It's pretty well obscured, but if you look, you can see the facility. So we tried to
keep it buffered.
keep as
Okay.
much as we possibly could.
Okay.
Now I'll go back to the, let's see, PowerPoint's back. Okay. Should pick up from current slide. Okay. Mike, we're done with you. We talked about the elevations.
I have another planning board meeting I'm supposed to be.
Oh.
So I'm just kind of making sure that I cover everything before I have to,
Book out of here.
yeah.
When you're ready to go, you can leave. We'll talk about you behind your back door.
Perfect.
We'll say all good things.
Yes. Great presentation.
Can I ask if there's any questions
Absolutely.
at this point?
Of course.
Before I have to,
I think I'm good.
okay.
You don't want me to talk about architecture. That's never he's got to live with whatever I say.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and present. I appreciate
Thanks
that.
for coming up.
Yeah.
I am curious, it's quite a span. Dennis Morse, 340 Cape Road. Truss roof?
It's pre-engineered metal building.
Yes.
So the building is actually beams and columns as opposed to trusses.
The metal?
So, yes, it's metal, all steel structure. Yeah. Yep.
I always get stuck talking about cost, so it's an thanks.
And Mike's leaving.
He's got one.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
It's a little hard to
You
see
have,
it
you have a
with-
question?
We got one more.
Yeah.
Oh, I got some questions, so I'll just get them done.
Sounds like engineer.
Yeah.
Is that air working?
David Brown, 91 Tenny Hill Road, and I happen to be a mechanical engineer. I work in the same kind of industry these folks do. So I had a few questions particularly about sprinklers, and the sprinklers versus the 2-hour firewalls. And I went on our website, and right now we have a supplemental annual town meeting warrant, Article 36, which would be to amend the town. It's called the Fire Protection Ordinance, and it has a date on it that says given under our hands on the 7th day of May, AD 2024. And so knowing that that's out there, so Raymond has a Fire Protection Ordinance, last amended June 8, 2021, which in Article 8, new building construction, requires a fire sprinkler system in buildings over 4,800 square foot floor area. And it does allow substituting firewalls, but only for 1 and 2 family buildings. There is also a similar provision for the 4,800 square feet for additions, and in that there isn't that same 1 and 2 family buildings provision. So I'll put out the question to you: were you aware of that when you wrote in your report that not required, under sprinklers you put not required, and you referenced only NFPA 13 and IBC on page 63. So that's a question. Another question was, when you wrote that, were you presuming that this article would pass? And that if this article passes, it would allow substituting firewalls in all buildings and not just this building. And then I would ask, which takes precedence? The IBC, the NFPA standards adopted by the state fire marshal, or the local ordinance? Then I would ask, what would be the anticipated cost of sprinkler systems for this building? I found online references suggesting $3 to $4 a square foot, but I understand that water storage would be required for this building because we have a well, we don't have a city system. So that would add some cost. And I wanted to comment that NFPA research demonstrates that sprinkler systems effectively control fires with only a few heads being activated, saving property, lives of occupants, and lives of firefighters. And I would ask that you could describe the differences between suppressing a fire with a sprinkler system versus containing it within firewalls for a period of time, knowing that those firewalls are rated for 2 hours. And comment on that regarding life safety and property loss. Thank you.
I may ask you to repeat some of those because that's a pretty long list of questions.
And for your benefit, I brought a couple copies, and if the board wants a couple copies, if you'd like a copy to read that, just follow along.
I'll take one.
Well,
Thanks.
can I just ask a question on your questions?
Well, these are my questions.
Right.
Yeah.
But I guess my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, I was asked this today by some people in town that, and Bruce would be able to answer this too, is when you guys go to a home fire or whatever kind of a fire, do you or do you not cut the power off to the house because whatever reason with the fire? Does the power to the house shut off when you guys have a house fire?
That's great.
Sorry. Half asleep. There we go.
So to answer your question, yes, we will cut the power off or have CMP cut the power off. At that point in time, we would be supplementing the sprinkler system with our pumper trucks. So
Okay.
we're fighting the fire from the outside by hooking up and shuttling water to that scene.
Okay.
As we did up on Rosewood the other day, only we're not the ones applying it, the sprinkler system would be.
Well, but in that case, though, there was no power there, I think, right? Because they
Correct.
had lost
No power there.
So the sprinkler system,
Yeah.
that was just, yeah, it didn't work.
The
Okay.
fire was too far at that point.
Right.
Because it hadn't worked, correct.
Well, but yeah, and I guess that's my concern is if power's being cut off, so it's not going to help at all anymore. Or if we don't have power, then the sprinkler system's not going to work.
And in that case, it was one of the 4%, 96% efficiency on sprinkler systems for knocking down fire, saving lives, et cetera. This was one of the 4%. It doesn't happen a whole lot, obviously, only being a 4% margin of error. And the backup generator also had quit. So we lost power for an extended period of time due to the storm, and the backup generator quit, and we're still trying to figure out why exactly that occurred.
Okay. Thanks, Bruce.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. So some of these questions I can't answer because they're not really in my purview, and others I can. So question number one was, when did we start our work?
Well, my job number went all the way back to 2014. But in earnest, it's been in the last couple of years. We've really been focused on it, mostly in the last year.
Question number two talks about the Raymond's Fire Protection Ordinance. And was the team aware of it? Yes, we were. The code analysis is for NFPA, IBC, ADA, International Energy Code, and for the Uniform Plumbing Code. So that's the answer to number 3. Number 4, which takes precedent, they all do. No one is weighted more than the other. IBC and NFPA are equally, typically a building inspector or the code enforcement officer enforces IBC, and the State Fire Marshal's office and the local fire authority having jurisdiction enforce NFPA. Number 5, cost of sprinkler systems. Those numbers are pretty low. We don't see those numbers, $3 and $4 a square foot these days. The cost of a sprinkler entrance, just bringing it into the building, the 4 or the 6-inch main that's required, depending on where you're coming in, if it's already in the street, can be anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 just to bring the supply into the building. And then from there, the distribution system, sprinkler heads and such, relatively somewhere between $5 and $7.50 a square foot, depending on whether you've got a combination wet-dry system or it's all dry or all wet. When you have, sorry.
I was just going to say, in this case,
when you don't have water,
then we end up with bring in a fire protection engineer, does an assessment for tank size, identifies tanks, fire pump, and all those costs. And there would have to be fire pump building. We don't typically put it in the tank with the pump, so it's in a separate facility. So that would all be worked out by, if the ordinance, the changes didn't happen and we had to go that route, there would be a process to follow.
those are not cheap.
If I can just speak from my seat.
No, you cannot.
And the reason for that is because if you don't get picked up on the mic, they can't hear you out in the...
I'll say I think that last answer, that last thing you said, actually kind of answers my question number 4, which takes precedent. Because it seems to me that you've implied that I think you just said, if the ordinance change doesn't pass, you would have to bring in an engineer because we have this ordinance, it almost sounds to me like it does take precedent, that it's because it's more stringent, it's a more stringent, safer ordinance than the state code, that the state allows municipalities to pass safer codes than the state codes. And so as of right now, we would need a sprinkler system, it seems to me.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a yes? Okay.
Well, you have an ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Question number 6, I think Chief already addressed. And question number 7, considering the low number of numbers required on page 52, why do the floor plans show twice as many toilets and lavatories? There's I'm going to refer to my own notes here. Yep, so at this point, we needed 2 minimum bathrooms for gender purposes. There was desire to put a bathroom out in nearest the work bays, so that would be like kind of the dirt, greasy hands and feet kind of thing, and keeping people from tracking through the administrative area. And then the one in the administrative area was purely for convenience for that team, instead of going through the locker rooms to the changing room bathroom. So it was really kind of a sensitivity protocol that we employed there. So we at least put them back to back so that they were at least efficiently laid out. So that's that answer. With that, I will excuse myself.
Yes.
If that's
Yep.
okay?
Yep.
Okay.
I have a question. One more. Dennis Morse, 340 Cape. It sounds like you've done a lot of public works buildings in the last couple of years. I'm just curious how many of them didn't sprinkle?
Orno wasn't sprinkled. Westbrook had water. That was sprinkled. South Portland was. What about Wyndham?
Wyndham was sprinkled.
Yeah.
And from the standpoint, just to quickly answer that, there's IBC, the International Building Code, tells you how big a building can be in a certain use group without being sprinkled.
Mm-hmm.
Once you eclipse that square footage, you're sprinkling.
Oh, I understand.
And all these other buildings, all these other locations were huge.
Yeah, I just didn't know if even insurance rates and stuff like that mattered. If Westbrook didn't have to sprinkle, maybe they wanted to sprinkle to save on insurance. I just was curious how many you had that didn't. I heard Orono. So that's one.
Yeah, the other ones, like Wyndham, that was 2-story, a lot of square footage. Saco was huge, Kennebunk's big, so.
And they all have public water.
Yeah.
They all have public water and 3-phase power.
Right.
Which is critical.
Right.
For
Sprinkler.
all of that.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See, Mike? Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. I had the opportunity, based on department head interviews, being on the comprehensive plan. So I had the pleasure a few months back to talk both to the Public Works Director and also the Fire Chief and the Assistant Fire Chief. And so I will tell you that as far as it seems like fire is pretty well represented here as well. So I guess I'd just say this. I am convinced, I was in healthcare for 30 years. I worked in a hospital that was 120 years old. So I'm very familiar with the fact that what we were always told is be careful with your renovations. As soon as you go into the wall, you got to renovate everything up to standards. So that was always a consideration whenever we were trying to rehab an old building. And Sebago Technics has convinced me that the building down the road here is not really cost effective, that it has seen its life expectancy, and it's in some respects dangerous. So I guess my question is, or not my question, but my statement is this: if the community thinks that we're done spending money, we're not. And although for years in this community it's been the Raymond way, which is, I believe, how that trailer got there, the bottom line is that if it's not safe for public works, it's not safe for fire safety either. And so, since I live right up the road here, East Raymond and North Raymond, the first response, and correct me if I'm wrong, comes from this station for us. And we got the schools right down the road. So I guess there's got to be some consideration that we aren't through spending money. And so whether this ends up being $4 million or $6 million or $8 million, believe me, we're not done. And I did have conversations with the chief, and I believe when I had the conversation with the chief, what he was saying is that potentially, 2 bays, in the once the school comes into the town's ownership again, that just 2 bays, one for an ambulance and one for a pumper or a fire truck there, means that then we will then have East Raymond and North Raymond covered, so that we're not dependent on something coming from down on 302. And so that's going to be a consideration down the road. And I've heard conversations back and forth about, well, that's a lot of money, and maybe we're going to do this incrementally. And what I'll tell you is this: my sense, and the problem that I've had to deal with for the last year and a half on comprehensive plan is the fact that we've been getting inundated with information from the community on what they want. And it's very clear that we've been behind in infrastructure forever. Which is not surprising that Public Works has been asking for this. And by the way, when I did that interview, I actually saw Nathan's office. so that was pretty
Nice and
impressive.
clean, wasn't it?
Pretty impressive, yeah. Yeah. And then when I put my foot on the table, I hit the rec guy. Because, that's how close he is. In there. So I guess that's all I'm saying is that, we're not done spending money. And I believe the problem that I've wrestled with, and I think a number of people on the committee I serve on, is the fact that for the last 18 months, we've been getting inundated with this information from the community. And yet, the plan is not yet approved. It won't be approved until sometime a year from this June. We're due to finish up in January. But I will tell you that the information, it's what's frustrating is we have that information now. And so just to kind of put that thought in SelectBoard's thought process, that this I absolutely endorse the fact that Public Works needs a new space, because this is not a space that is going to be easily, if possibly, renovated. But then my question is, what does fire safety do? Do they stay in that building? Thank you.
Go right ahead.
John Fasella, 19 Lou Lodge Road, Raymond, also a member of the fire department. I just want to add something that is not being considered here, and that is the pollution effect when we fight a fire. I've spent the last 2 months doing an awful lot of research about sprinklers. The chief has my information, Wayne has my information. But what's notably absent from most of the discussions with anybody is what happens when there is a fire. Now, we're going to respond with 3 people. That's what our on-duty staff is 24/7. That's kind of low, but that's what we got. And we're going to, as was pointed out, we're going to respond from the central station on 302. So it's going to take a while before we get there. So in an average house fire of 4,800 square feet, Swedish Research Institute did a lot of studies about the pollution from a house fire. And I am also an engineer. I'm an electrical engineer, not a mechanical or fire protection. But I ran all the numbers. And the equivalent amount of pollution from a 4,800 square foot residence is equal to 379 automobiles pollution for a year. That is one part of the pollution. That's the pollution that goes in the air. The second part of the pollution is the runoff from water, because when we put water on a fire, we put a lot of water, as much as we possibly can. We have tankers. It takes a while to get that all set up, and so forth and so on. But there's a huge amount, maybe 60,000, maybe 80,000, maybe 40,000 gallons of water that will be polluted and will sit in the groundwater. It will run off into our streams and lakes and so forth. So that's another issue to think about when we have a fire. Now, in the Public Works garage, it's a much larger facility. It's got a lot of issues of its own. And it strikes me as interesting that we're ignoring the issue of what do we do when we get there. We're going to pump water, a lot of water, because it's going to be probably a big fire. That's all I have.
Okay, Owens, you ready?
I guess I'm back to cost.
Yes, you are.
It's probably good that that's hard to read, sorry. So
What's the bottom number, Owen?
the bottom number is $6.194 million. And I can tell you we've budgeted a number of these public works facilities with Kennebunk, the most recent, similar construction and bigger building, but on a per square foot basis and construction, it came in right where pretty much where we predicted it would. This building is, so there's also a couple of things to note in here. We do carry a contingency in these projects. In this case, we carried an 18% contingency, which is about $842,000. Sounds like a lot, but that's good. The bidding climate, I see bids vary by $1 million or more. It's just, it comes in lower, great.
How many companies are out there that can actually build this?
There's probably a dozen, at least.
Oh.
When Kennebunk, I was pleasantly surprised we had 5 bidders come in. We had 2 bidders within $50,000 of each other on a $12 million project. So Great Falls Construction, PM Construction, Benchmark, Sheridan Corporation are all companies around that would bid on a project like this.
Well, oh, okay, so you say that, so you're giving the 6.19. How many times have you seen that people go way over that number?
In all the ones I haven't had that happen. We've asked for enough money to make that happen.
Okay.
Orno was right at the budget. We actually had to do a little value engineering on that one, and I don't know what it is about the Bangor-Orno area, but prices seem to be higher up there at times. But Westbrook was about $9 million. That came in pretty much on track. South Portland was a bigger project, but we budgeted this around where we think we can work. And I mean, the contingency's there because I'd like to say we're perfect, but I don't have a crystal ball, so.
No, but that's a good contingency too, though.
Yeah.
My thing is, it's an open book, so people are coming in to give you your bid in there. It's probably a reason they're all coming in right at or around that number, because they get to see it.
Well, I suppose they could look it up. I usually get asked, what's your budget in the bid process, and I tell them the owner prefers not to disclose it because they don't want to skew somebody's thinking one way or the other.
If you have estimators, though, I mean, they're not doing very well due diligence. If they know the town, they know the thing, they can watch.
Well, they ought to be able to
They can
find
watch
it.
a
Yeah, I
meeting
know.
and figure it out in 13 seconds. But
Exactly. So I mean, so Kennybunk, the low bid was 11.5 million, and our budget was 13.3. So we came in a couple. Now within that, there's furnitures, fixtures, and equipment that goes in. There's other costs that go into that, and
did they pick the low bidder though?
well, at the moment, I believe they will. They haven't gone to the Board of Selectmen yet. They won't be till the 23rd or something of this month. All reputable. We got really good reputable companies that came in.
Yeah.
Good.
It's not unusual to bid it out like this, though. I mean, you know, to vote on the bond issue and then go out to bid, because then you know what your pool of money is going to be. When years ago, when I was the chair of the renovation of this Cross Arena, we went out to get voter approval at 34.5 million, and then we went out to bid to see who was going to bid the project. And they came in at 34.5 million, and we were on time and on budget.
Yep.
You know, that's the way it works.
We couldn't. That's usually the way that's all the ones we've done. I have had a couple in the past, solid waste facilities, where we went out to bid, got the bid in, and then wanted them to hold the bid until we went through public vote and referendum, and sometimes it was a year later and they were gone. So I don't know. It's a chicken or the egg thing.
They're not going to hold a $6 million bid for a year?
Nah.
Things don't change. That's weird.
I've tried it a bunch of different ways, but we have to start someplace and get a budget. And typically, this has served us well. And
I mean, you're gonna have a performance bond anyway.
there'll be a payment and performance bond on it. We can ask for a bid bond if you want. What a bid bond means, if somebody comes in and says, "Oh, everybody else was $1 million more. What did I do wrong? I'm going to walk from this." You can get 5% of the bid price on it. Those are tough to pull.
Because you don't get many bids.
Yeah, so there's things around that, and I wanted to talk about the process just a little bit so everybody understood on this. So if this went through in June, we still have to go to the planning board and get site plan review approvals. So we would need to do that over the summer. And we're proposing to prepare bridging documents and put this out design build. And by that I mean we will have specified the elevations, the heights, the floor dimensions, what has to go in it, all the equipment that goes in it. But we're going to let the design builder finish the foundation design based on the geotechnical report. We're going to let them finish the mechanical, electrical design and see if we can gain any efficiencies from that piece of it. It's exactly what we did with Westbrook, and it worked. It worked really pretty well. I've done some. I can do design, bid, build. It's just where you put your design dollars on it. So, and public works buildings work for this approach because. Sorry, Nathan. They're not as detailed or involved.
They're simple.
As say,
They're simple.
Yeah,
They're simple.
say a fire station where you've got decon and you've got all sorts of different fixtures in it. When I did Cache Corner Fire Station for South Portland, there was no way in heck we were going to do that design build. That went design bid build because we were very, very prescriptive on what we wanted. But the public works building, as long as I get my 3 feet walls, I get my radiant floor heat, I get my insulated metal building panels, it meets MoveBack, it meets the codes.
And if you do the design build, the builder owns the mistakes.
Yes.
If you do a bid package, you own the mistakes.
Yep. And it's about transfer of liability. That's exactly right. Yeah, exactly. So it works pretty well for this. And so then if we went out this fall, the goal would be to get bids back by late December. And then construction would likely, so this is a little bit of a challenge, construction could start in the winter of 2025. However, we write in the specs contractors' own winter conditions because they always have to come back worried about freezing ground. So we have to decide whether we want to give some flexibility to push it out to a spring start if the contractor so chooses. But generally, we're going to need about 14 to 18 months to build this, because when the design builder, we get a bid, if it's awarded, then we get submittals, we have to get the building design, we've got to have my team goes through it to make sure that it's consistent with the owner's project requirements, and then they go order the building, and then the building comes in 12, 16 weeks later. You know, it's getting better. The delays in getting materials is improving, but it's still a challenge. The biggest challenge is we don't have a generator in this one, but if you had a generator, those things are like a year or more out to get a backup generator. And so, and transformer pads, it's gotten better, but at one point it was ridiculous how long it took. So anyway, that would be the process.
Okay. Owens, please address this fire sprinkler issue. We have an email from the State Fire Marshal's office saying, for the use of this building, you do not need to sprinkle it.
I saw that email. So we would ultimately file for the fire marshal's office, but based on the correspondence and my conversations with Mike, this project would fit within the NFPA requirements, and by NFPA and the state likely would not need a sprinkler system in it. The town has a separate ordinance that's more conservative, okay? So, I'm the guy that draws these plans. This is a town decision on how you want to handle it. I'm the delivery guy. I did reach out about sprinkler system costs. Sorry, but everybody's telling me, the contractors, 3 to 4 might have been good pre-pandemic, but costs have really escalated. Underground tanks, I reached out to Sargent and other folks and tried to get some pricing on underground tanks. Fire protection engineer has to size it, that's not me, but that would have to go through that process. So I don't know, you could easily add $250,000 or more to the cost of it, maybe even up to $500,000 depending on what you do for tanks. So I don't know unless, until that process,
including getting 3-phase power there.
Go ahead, David.
Understanding what's just been said, is there another mechanism that the town has using the the code enforcement officer, the AHJ, whatever, to make an exception to our ordinance, or is without having to amend our ordinance, because amending our ordinance will have ripple effects to other buildings that might get built that might be larger, that might just might be more of a problem for the firefighters in the town.
We are going to discuss it, as you pointed out, on the supplemental warrant later on, about what's going to be on it.
Okay, thank you.
This was actually supposed to be discussed at a previous meeting.
Yeah, this is supposed
That
to
was
be
had
back in
solars on it and everything
March,
else,
yeah.
and was running really late, and then we hit with that storm.
Right.
Yes.
And my last slide said questions and comments, but you hit me with them all through the presentation, so I guess I'm good.
All right.
This is great. You guys did a great job. You really did.
Yeah.
Gave a lot of details. But you didn't go overboard, like with all the extravagance, whatever. You kept everything. Yeah.
I might have got kicked under the table if I did that. Thank you, everybody.
I'm hoping a lot of people in town have watched this presentation, and hopefully it answered a lot of questions. And I agree with Peter. This is just one part of the investment of a lot of investments coming down the road.
It's a rolling stone, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else want to make any comments?
All right,
Great.
Closing out.
Okay. Thank you, Owens.
Thank you. Have a good
Thanks for
evening,
coming on.
everybody.
All right. Before we go on, I made a mistake at the last meeting on voting for Chris Hansen to be our code enforcement officer on an interim basis.
I made a motion, and it was in second.
Right.
And yes.
Yeah. So
You wanna skip forward?
We have to remake the motion.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
move to appoint Chris Hansen as temporary, or the
Interim.
interim CEO.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. I won't go on about how wonderful Alex is anymore because he's not here, which is what threw me off. So, all those in favor? All right, Chris, you are now interim CEO. Thank you, and I apologize for that mistake. All right, Kurt, you still there? You and your sunflowers?
You bet. I'm
All
here.
right. KRT property revaluation.
What is KRT?
Yes, as you may remember, we bid for real estate and personal property revaluation back in the summer and fall months, and we only received bids on real property. So we resubmitted an RFP for the personal property component only to pick up that part of the process. And KRT, who's our bid award winner for the real estate, was our sole bidder for the personal property component. They didn't have the staffing in place during the initial RFP to bid on personal property, but they do have that staffing in place now, and they were our lone bidder at $20,000. So I'm recommending that the board award the personal property project revaluation to KRT and authorize the town manager to enter into contract.
So moved on the motion?
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, Kurt, unanimous?
Okay. Thank you very much.
See ya. What is next?
Authorizing corporate resolution for access to accounts.
Oh, yes, Sue and Sharice. Is that correct?
Yes. This is so that we can access the trust accounts.
Okay, why don't you explain what's going on here?
We have, actually, Sharice has more detail than I do, but we have, would you mind? We have several trust accounts, the scholarships, the cemetery funds, things along that line, and I needed to be added to the accounts. And it's been quite the interesting process to manage to get my name on the account.
Yeah, it's kind of standard protocol. Right now, it's just me, which is not ideal. Portland Trust Company has the cemetery and the scholarship funds. There's also 3 other funds that they hold, and we've determined what a couple of them are, and I'm working on another one that's called
what's it called?
Ministerial.
Ministerial. Do any of you have any recollection what the ministerial account is?
Is there money in it?
Yes. As of the June 30 audit, it was $37,000. And I did find a file, Sue.
Oh, you did?
I did, and there's a statute that we can, research and dissect, whatever.
Usually it's directed to a certain piece of property or a
Yes.
certain area.
And I think
or a certain function.
Yeah, the purpose of it, from what I just quick glanced at, was to offset school expenditures.
Oh.
So
Yeah,
that's,
and I couldn't find anything in the town meeting minutes, but I've only gotten a log back to, where am I?
it was
Somewhere in the
established
70s.
back in 1800 and something.
Oh, I'm not that far back.
Wow.
With initially $2,175.
And it's just been sitting there?
Just been sitting there.
And we never knew.
From what I can tell.
Wow.
So.
If we can probably find out, more information on that.
Yeah, we're gonna need to research it and find out
Yeah.
why it's
What it
there.
is.
Yeah.
It's like lost funds, you call the state, unclaimed funds.
Unclaimed property, yeah.
So this corporate resolution is just to add Sue on as a second person to the account for safety and security purposes.
All
Any motion on that?
right, I do.
Yeah.
All right, motion to authorize.
Let me ask a question first. Does it need to designate a name, or can it just be the position?
Town manager. Town manager and finance
I
director.
believe they needed our signatures.
Yeah,
Yeah, I requested, in FY24, we issued $2,500 in scholarship monies. And I just simply send them an email requesting them to cut us a check for $2,500, and she does reference my name in the email per my request.
I would check that, because You know what my feeling is on
Yeah, I do.
having a person named.
Yeah, I didn't even think
because,
of that.
you know,
Well,
if all of a sudden a truck hits you, then where are you?
Yeah.
If it's the position that's named, then when you fill that position, that person
Mm-hmm.
automatically moves into that slot.
Yeah, I think you may want to just change the wording on it.
Town
Yeah,
manager and
yeah,
vice
like
director.
Susan Look, town manager, or any successor. You know, and the same with you.
okay.
Yeah,
Because, you know,
this
that-
way that will cover you.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's a way that you can call and they can call and check and verify. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a motion.
A motion to authorize the corporate resolution for access to accounts at the Portland Trust Company.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you. I'll check on that tomorrow. So.
Thank you. And
Find
thank you
some more
for
money.
researching it.
Find some more money.
Yeah. What's next?
Consideration of adding a supplemental warrant to the annual town meeting.
Yeah, supplemental warrant to annual town meeting.
That would be Bruce's?
No, it's a it's a select board.
Oh. So are we going with the one that was there, that was at that meeting for the March?
We didn't discuss that.
No,
Oh,
that's,
they rewrote it and gave it, and we haven't discussed it yet.
Right.
And now we're figuring out
Right. So this is
if
just
the
saying-
wording is there, or if we want to do something different, or
So
get rid of it
what
altogether.
this does is puts another warrant article
Right.
at the town meeting.
Well,
And then we get to discuss what it is on the next agenda item. And that's what goes into the referendum, correct? Am I correct on that?
no, it's the proposed red line changes are
Yeah.
what's here.
What you're doing.
But the warrant article is worded such that if you were to make any changes, they're covered with the warrant article. I'm not sure if I'm making any sense.
By agreeing to the warrant, what we're doing is saying that it is that red line document.
It could be, or you could vote a different change, and
Or
it
you
would
could change
still, because all the
Right.
warrant article says that the ordinance be further amended to amend Article 8, new building construction, and to add Article 15, appeals, as an addendum 10.
Right.
So you could make changes to either of those, or you could change the wording completely to the warrant article.
And is this what we had agreed to?
No, we haven't discussed this.
No.
We just got it
So-
sent.
So can I ask something on this too? All right, compared to what I'm reading again, the sprinkler thing that Bruce had got from the state fire marshal, and I'm looking at this also. I think what's happening is you have to tie the two together if you're going to do it, because this is saying in this letter that as a general rule of thumb, most repair garages are not required to be sprinkled based on the level of repairs occurring and are classified as an industrial occupancy and not a special purpose industrial occupancy. So how do you tie that with this? Because what is ours classified as?
Well, it says in this, redlined.
Oh, I don't have the red line on mine, I'm sorry.
Right
Yeah,
here.
for commercial
commercial
building
buildings
proposed in
proposed.
rural residential zones such as a minor repair facility, low hazard storage, type 1 or 2 construction with engineered compartmentalized fire areas equal to or less than 5,000 feet. The compartmentalized fire area wall shall be a minimum of 2-hour UL listed fire rated separation. So I mean, it's
Right, I
saying,
see
you know,
that, yep.
but the other thing that this is doing, which we didn't have in the ordinance before, was the right of appeal.
Yes.
There was no right of appeal in the
Right.
original, in that original ordinance. So this is adding that right of appeal as well as that, but it is also, originally it was the discussion on, there was a discussion on 4,000 square feet, then it was 4,500, and so what this has done is gone to 5,000.
I remember asking for that because that's what the state was too. Yep.
And
How close are we to the state now?
we're still stricter.
I know, so why can't we just go with the state?
Yeah, it would make it quite a bit easier, because then you're not having. I mean, if you look at the other towns this size, they don't have one. If you look at the towns bigger, they all have it. You know, the older towns, Westbrook and those closer together, but Gray, Casco, whatever, Naples, all those have they don't have the sprinkler ordinance. They go to the.
Yeah, yeah. I was just about to ask you to go up there, so.
Right.
God, that chair, I gotta bring a pad for it or something. So, yeah, when we talk about the sprinklers in the state and all that, understand, we'll go back to a conversation we first held when we first started chatting about it. We do understand we needed to have an appeals process. Don't know how that got skipped. It was clarified or run through by the attorney at that point. But our ordinance, or any local ordinance, is really honed in on that community's needs and or impacts. So for this town, it's based on what we're capable of doing for fire flow, what we're capable of supplying for manpower and staffing at a fire. And that's where we came up with the square foot cost, or square foot figure, not cost. So Casco doesn't have an ordinance. They have one on the books for subdivisions and other buildings as of this year, I'm told by their fire chief. Most communities do have a ordinance of some sorts on the books, and usually it is based upon their capabilities. The state adopted an absolute minimum building code, fire code, etc., and that's what they enforce. Ours is honed in more towards our needs as a community and our abilities as a department. We can change those abilities, that's not a problem, but it includes bringing water mains to areas so that we have water to supply the fire, or more apparatus, or more staffing, or a combination of all of those things in order to do it. So as we talk about the square footage and standardizing and things like that, I just feel it's super important that we all are on the same page with that. There are certain capabilities that we have, certain capabilities we don't, and it is a matter of risk reduction, and that's our number one goal, is risk reduction. So I think that putting forth the alternatives, putting forth the appeals process is absolutely needed. Something that just was never even considered in the beginning, and I don't understand why the attorney didn't catch the appeals. But here we are, so we'll fix that problem, and we do have the appeals, the alternatives out there that are proposed, and they could be enacted. I agree that with the gentleman who spoke earlier, that about, worrying that it might affect everything and have that ripple effect. I believe personally we were going down a proper road of getting some protection in place. We were lucky the day of the fire in your neighborhood, Joe. We were right on the lake already, just more on this end. Or we wouldn't have been just 5, 6, 7 minutes, something like that. We would have been 15 to 20 minutes. And when there's a life at risk, that's just way too long. So our capabilities just aren't there normally where we're coming from and with what we have for staffing. So that's the only consideration I'd ask you to really consider when we look at this. It sounds great to make things a little standardized, maybe streamline it, and I agree with that. I love simple things, but sometimes they just aren't so simple.
Have you read this ordinance?
So I've read through the proposal, yes.
And are you okay with it?
So there is just, that is fine. The only thing I questioned, and I think Wayne questioned as well as John, was the square foot language, but I'm assured that it's in a different section and would apply. As long as it does apply and the attorneys have checked it, etc., then that will work.
What do you mean square footage on this
So
one?
based upon the gross floor square footage.
It's the 5,000 square feet.
And the 5,000 that we made the concession to, yeah.
I mean, how many 5,000 square foot homes are in Raymond?
Lots of them.
Lots of
Are
them.
there?
Because you're counting basements, anything with the same roof structure.
Yeah.
We started this when we had a large home being built on Raymond Cape. It's actually more square footage than our fire station is. So that in itself was way more than we can handle for a fire department. So I looked at it and said, wow, we're charging them a building permit. We're letting them build it. We're going to
How big's the fire to
protect it, and then we can't protect it. So where do we go from there? We're 14,800 square feet.
Yeah. Well, it would be 10,000. The state's 10 anyway, right?
In the
So they would
state,
have to
depending
sprinkle it no
on
matter what.
occupancy. It
Yeah.
does depend on occupancy figures, yeah.
So
That's a huge thing.
this still makes you, if you build a commercial building, have, right?
Yep.
A sprinkler system. Multi-family home,
And yep.
right? That's still all covered under this.
Correct. I believe so. Wayne, I think I'd just ask you to give it a nod, yes or no, and if you could.
Well, the state one is too.
He's shaking his head yes.
Okay.
I think that's yes.
That's his yes. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't
Yeah,
leaving anything
that's
out.
yes. It still covers those projects, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you see the article in the paper last week on fire departments and that on average 96% of their calls are rescue?
Oh, yeah, that's out there. Ours is 70 for our figure.
Okay, I was
Yeah,
wondering what
70
ours
annual.
was.
Correct.
Yeah.
And yes, and I understand that and looking at that and why we're so worried about fire, but almost 70% of our calls were 2 hours away or an hour away at Main Med. But the whole call takes 3 hours.
Yeah.
That's 2 of our 3 staff, that's on duty, they're gone.
So when you say 30% of your calls are fire,
Yeah.
is that other towns also?
It includes everything.
Everything.
Yeah, it's mutual
Okay.
aid. It's
Not just
fires,
Raymond. Do you
accidents.
know what the figures are for
Correct.
just Raymond?
I could guess that we're probably 27% of those, 26% of those.
20.
Actually, just in Raymond.
26% of the 30,
the third.
or?
The majority of that.
Okay, so that would be about 7-8%?
So, yeah, probably right in there.
Okay.
It's close. Again,
My
don't
math
quote me
is
on that. But
correct.
yeah, without looking it up.
Yeah.
So have we had any sprinklers go off?
Yeah, we have. Saber Yachts, not Saber Yachts. Yes, Saber Yachts, main building, sorry. Get my
Yep.
stuff facts together here.
And they're over 10,000 though, they'd be state
Yeah.
mandated anyway.
They would be, and they definitely would be under our.
Any residential ones go off?
We have not had any residential saves yet, or fire activations yet. We've been close, we've had fires in them, they've been small when we've gotten there, and we've been able to take care of them, so the sprinkler has not tripped.
Just to kind of follow that up, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
On sprinkler activations, in my 30-year career in Westbrook, I only responded to 6 sprinkler activations. Half of those were commercial buildings and the other half was residential sprinkler activations. So, the actual activations aren't a lot where they're flowing water.
Right.
But the protection they're providing is.
My only issue is, and with the people that are emailing into us and talking about it, is we're adding all these costs on, all these inspections on, all the overtime for inspections, all this, and none of them are going off, and none of them are saving, and you have Westbrook with 4 times the amount of homes, 6 in 30 years go off, so we're mandating these people to get these things. They don't go off in our town at all. We've had one go off and it was commercial, and even in the state, it would have had to be sprinklered anyway if we go to the state ordinance instead of having a more restrictive one.
Yeah.
Levitt Road. So understand, I learned a long time ago that 75% of all statistics are made up. Think about that. So, but the bottom line is this: it's similar to if a crime is underreported, then it's kind of thought of as it doesn't happen. How many sprinkled houses are in Raymond? And so that would factor into the calculation. They're not going off. Well, they're not going off because there aren't that many. So once again, being reasonable about looking at these situations. When I talked with the chief, basically as part of the interview process, it was clear at that point. 70% of fire and rescue is basically for ambulance runs. No doubt about that. I also know that the population of this town is aging. So it only makes sense that, yes, there's going to be more runs to Main Med because you have elderly people like myself that get sicker and need transport to a medical facility. Once again, so if there's 30% for overall responses to fires in town or with mutual aid, then the question would have to be, how many of those were sprinkled? And my sense is that number is going to be relatively low. So I'm impressed with the fact that there are, as the chief just said, there's alternatives to being more aggressive with having sprinkler systems for fire protection. We can have more firefighters. We can put in hydrants and have public water in places. We can do all of those things. As far as driving up the cost of a house, my sense is this one, that if you look at the overall percentage of the cost of a new house and what a sprinkler system would cost, it's negligible. And I've even heard the discussion at this board as far as sprinklers are concerned, basically saying that, well, someone who's going to build a 50,000 square foot house and isn't going to spend the money on a sprinkler system, they're probably not getting good financial advice. So that would happen as well. I just think that this is an important issue. I believe, along with two families and with commercial buildings, as far as requiring sprinkler systems, we can debate for quite a while about whether the public works area needs to be sprinklered or not. 2-hour firewall seems to be a step in the right direction. If we don't want the very expensive equipment to rust because it's outside, we probably don't want it to melt either.
Go right ahead.
As I was thinking about it, if you don't mind, I'm going to guess that we're about 10% maybe, or it's got to be under 10% of our buildings that are sprinkled.
It's made up.
So
it's not a real number.
It's got to be there. It's got to be there. I will look it up and give you the actual stats on it. I will provide those for you.
Stats don't matter now.
That'd be a good stat to go with. So.
John Fasella again. So a couple of things. I actually know that nationwide the number of buildings that are sprinkled, the number of buildings that are sprinkled is relatively low. And there's a very simple reason for that, because the building associations and the real estate agents have fought it tooth and nail, and because of the myth that it's going to add a lot of cost. And I'll address that in a second. But first, let me make a point. Why are we doing this? This is not to save the building. These sprinkler systems for residential buildings are designed for one purpose: to let people get out in time. Now, compared to the norms of other towns, we actually have a fairly large at-risk population. There are two segments of an at-risk population. There are small children who cannot get out by themselves, and there are elderly people, and I'm getting into that category, almost there, who cannot exit quickly. We've already talked in prior meetings, in 2 or 3 minutes, a room that starts on fire is fully engulfed, it flashes over. So we may not get there in 2 or 3 minutes. Most chances are we won't. Okay, so people have to get out. And the way they have to get out is with a sprinkler, which will put out the fire in seconds, about a minute, usually just one head. And the amount of water that's expended is going to be maximum 300 gallons in the tank for residents, as opposed to the thousands of gallons we'll put in. The second point is that we're talking about costs. So as the gentleman before me just described, the costs are relatively 1 or 2% of the household value. It depends very much on what the house is. But let me give you some facts. A lot of people like hardwood flooring. The cost in Maine for hardwood flooring is between $10,000 and $11,500 to put in hardwood flooring. I talked to what used to be Freedom Fire, and they told me that they will put in a system using iron pipe and PEX, depending, in Rolling Brook, right around the corner from where I live, for between $10,000 and $15,000. So basically, they will put in a system for about the same amount as hardwood flooring. If you go with an Uponor system, it's even cheaper than that. Some homeowners remodel their kitchens. The U.S. average last year was between $14,000 and $41,000. I have references for all of this if you're interested. I can give you a document. Chief can give you a document. And some people add rooms to additions to their houses, and again, the costs are anywhere from $12,000 to $40,000. So it's not really a big cost issue at all. I think that's really all I want to say at this point. It's a best practices thing, and we have to think, as this town ages and as we have younger people, are we protecting them the way we should? There was a horrific fire just last month in Pennsylvania, a home that did not have sprinklers, and the father and 4 children died. The mother and 2 children escaped because neighbors helped them get out. That town had hydrants, and they had a staffed fire department. And they could not put out the fire fast enough to save the father and 4 children. This is exactly what we're talking about here, and this is exactly why at-risk populations, young people or older people, should be protected if they build a new house here. Thank you.
I think my take on it is anybody can put a sprinkler in their house if they want. It's not, the ordinance is us as a town, as a government, regulating the people that are putting their houses in. I think everyone should put one in. They're super cheap, I guess, and you know, everyone that wants to can put one in. Especially, you know, you can put one in your house if you. So, like you're saying, you're getting older, and you know it's safer and all that. Anyone can easily put one in if that's something that they're concerned about. Radon system. If somebody's concerned about getting cancer, they can put a radon system in their house. I think this is more of an ordinance of the town, and what we're getting feedback from the town as trying to build a house now, doing that, it's a cost, and they're wondering if our government should be having an ordinance larger than the state of Maine to make them do things.
Well, and I think I like what, you know, Peter said too, and what you had said too, is, you know, if they don't want to put an ordinance in there, oh my God, put a sprinkler in there, that's fine. But then again, then you got to put that fire rated walls in there. Do you know what I mean? And somebody told me today, well, they do that anyways between the garage and the house anyways, or they're supposed to at least, yes.
Yeah. So for example, on that Honey Hill is a subdivision down off Webb's Mills Road, a new subdivision down there. And in lieu of sprinklers in that, because they extended the water mains and put hydrants in that whole subdivision, they were able to put a true UL listed 2-hour firewall between the units. They're duplex units, two full stories. So basement right to the ridge pole.
The state requires that too, right?
So they were able to do that, and there's a full 2-hour UL listed wall.
Does the state require that?
So Wayne, I'm going to defer to you on that because I'm not sure on a duplex.
I think they do.
I know on a triplex they do.
We're dying
here. You're correct, Chief. Over a 2-unit for the for the 2 units they built there. No, the state wouldn't require that.
Okay, this is going to be a question I'm probably going to get thrown back at me, but again, I don't know who picked the 10 people as far as the fire department goes. I mean, so yeah, we can get more fire people. I don't know where we ever came up with that number, to be honest, as far as firefighters here.
10 people.
Do you remember that?
I'm trying to remember what context that was in. Was that in the amount of people we need to fight a fire, to start to fight a fire?
Or have on our department, because you're saying that there's only 3 that can.
Oh, right.
For
Well,
staff,
we only have 3 on duty 24/7 right now.
Right.
There'll be, if we're lucky, a couple of the volunteer, if you will, the call members will show up.
Yep.
If they're in town, and you got to figure only a quarter or less of those will come out at any point because they have lives, so they're elsewhere.
Are you full now?
We are full,
Okay.
fully staffed, thank God. Most towns aren't. We are. So we're doing well that way. So to kind of cover that, it's really 19, 20 people initially on a fire scene. So you can get 2 lines in operation, interior operations, 2 people out as a rescue crew, a RIT crew, incident command, division sector commanders, water supply people. It takes a lot of people very quickly on scene. We
I think I
not
remember
achieve that.
30 people at fire.
Yeah, yeah, and that was ways into it before we could get that many people there. So.
Well, yeah, you have other towns.
It's other towns, and it takes forever.
10 towns, yeah.
For example, we had towns show up with just one person on a tank truck, and that's all you got out of them. So it's not a lot. But.
All right, let's try and move this ordinance along.
Yeah, sure.
What I like about it is the appeals process. I think it's about
One's
time.
a superior.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
The Board of Appeals. By statute, it can't go directly to Superior Court. It had to go to the Board of Appeals.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
I'll move the town meeting warrant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? In favor?
Sure.
Unanimous. Thank you. All right.
So this is going to go as a supplemental warrant, correct?
It's a supplemental warrant, but because of the nature of the wording being more generic, we were able to get it on the ballot. So we don't have to have another special town meeting. Because they hadn't printed yet. Mel just got the proof, so we were able
Oh my
to.
God, she's been so quiet there. Like,
You didn't even know she was there?
no, because we're so used to see, like, Madam, Mr. Chair, can I ask this? Or, yeah, she's so quiet.
All right. Fire chief memo. Bruce, you're back up.
What language is that?
Yeah, it's Chinese.
Sorry to be speaking so much tonight. My Reader's Digest version just got blown out of the water. So I was in last week giving the town manager a financial update on our budget and all the things that we've incurred in the last month here or so for expenses that we just didn't plan on. And I'd like to kind of go down through them. There are some things I think would be insurable, and we're working on that right now. And since I wrote what you have for a letter from me, that bill has actually gone up $4,500 additional dollars in repairs on apparatus. So it's nothing that's going away, unfortunately. The explanation is on there, and to touch on some of them really quickly, $3,500 plus dollars for tank 37, which was a mechanical seal in the pump that went out, and we had to put some new anodes, zinc anodes, which is the sacrificial piece of metal that preserves the pump, because we found when they built this truck, they did not put any in it, and a lot of our piping on this 5-year-old truck is looking like it's 20 years old and gonna let go if we don't fix it. So they got the seal fixed and took care of that. We had the truck slide off in the storm. Unfortunately, that wrecker bill's $2,500. The repairs to the damage, which is minor, are $600, and $1,000 of that will be the deductible if the insurance covers it. So we'll have a deduction in this, or a reduction in this. I just got word today that we had a ladder that was at the fire that got cooked when the fire broke out the front window, and we didn't get it moved in time. Will not be repairable, fixable, or even pass a basic test. So that's another $1,300 added. Turnout gear that we
Wait, where's
damaged.
that one? Added on to that, you're saying?
Yeah, added on, it's $1,341, and that's a ground ladder replacement. Turnout gear, $6,738 will replace the gear that is very damaged from that same fire. We have plastic parts of carpets that are melted into it. We just can't get out of it, so it's gonna have to go.
On that turnout gear,
Yes.
would any of those have been replaced in the budget for turnout gear for next year?
It wasn't in our plans. The captain's gear that he was wearing was only 2 years old, maybe.
Well, yeah, but you have, I mean, you have a certain number that you plan on replacing.
Yeah, we did have 10 sets. That would have replaced stuff that's wearing out, worn out, or, and we have to inspect our gear annually, et cetera, if not sooner. After every use, it's decontaminated, it goes through a process. Kind of give you that background. Those 2 sets were not stuff that we would be replacing in the next year. So we've got to get sets ordered now and make that whole thing work so that the plan still works. Oh yeah, Rescue 35 went out, had a vibration in it, and $2,667 later, that just came back in service. Nathan has engine 31 in his shop still after 2 months now, and we're up to $10,500 for the repairs on that. The fan blade detonated, took out the shroud and the radiator, so it's the fan blade, the shroud, and the radiator, and the parts are still on order. The shroud for that, because it's a specific custom truck, and Emergency One built that air tunnel that goes over it, the shroud, custom for that piece of equipment to haul the right amount of air through there to keep that truck cool. That's why it's so much money. The radiator itself was $6,000 and change, $3,800 for the shroud. The fan blade's the difference, I guess. I don't have a bill on that one yet. So basically where we're at is more like $29,887 versus the 25.
I'm sorry, that $2,500 tow, that was just from where it slid off to the garage down here?
That was just out of the ditch it was in, off the Cape Road. And it's a company Nate and we've used in the past several times.
The other tow was 500.
The other
and this
time
one's
was
25.
5. So they towed it from AI Road.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sloan's Cove Road to Town Garage for that repair, 500.
Yeah, and they towed the other one just out of the ditch, from the ditch onto the road for 2,500.
It was
Correct.
the same company?
Same company, same driver.
Wow.
Ask,
Yeah,
why?
Yeah.
Roads were horrible, almost unpassable. They had to stop along the way and cut trees, is what they said.
So is there any discussion on FEMA money or?
Were you guys going, was that?
Yeah, so.
He found a reason.
Sorry, go ahead.
So FEMA money. Yes, the storm has been, we've been allowed to put the packages together and apply for the damages, et cetera. Kind of scuttlebutt out there. We're hearing we're still threshold, and that's at best for Cumberland County. The state will probably stand the best chance of combining us all under one, and there's 2 thresholds. So the state has to meet this threshold of money, if you will. The county has to meet 2.1 million in public damages in order to be declared presidentially. As far as the state goes, it works out to be much less if we combine all together because of the population sparseness, if you will, of all the other counties. Cumberland and York is where your population, and Androscoggin's where your populations are. So we have a little bit higher threshold, if you will. I think we're going to be right on the edge of that, and if they put us together with the state, we'll definitely hit it. But if we go with the states and the president declares that, it'll be less money. It'll probably be 60 to 75%. If it's a county alone, it'll be 90%. The state will put in 5%. We own 5%. Not bad.
So
I don't know how they got, so a fire truck went down the road.
Yep.
Fine. Yep. To wherever it went.
Yep.
And then it slid off or turned around or did something.
Coming back, it slid off the road. Yeah.
And they couldn't get down the same road. But they got there.
They got there. Yeah.
Did it take them like 4 hours? What was the?
It took him a while. Yeah, I don't know the exact time.
I'm picturing a fire truck, which is big, and all the trees are down or whatever. Makes it down.
Yep.
Gets stuck. Yep. And then the guy coming just to pull it out of the ditch can't get down there and is charging us $2,500.
Correct.
Which company was it?
Cop Motors.
Wow.
They've
Have
always
you
been
seen
great.
it? Like,
I mean, I grew up with all those guys, so I mean, I know them. I'm friends with them. You know, Ronnie and my father were best friends growing up. So, you know, it's not like I don't have a tie to them, and it's not like they've ever treated us poorly at all. We've always gotten the 500 tow, which is really cheap for a big truck tow, by the way. Most companies charge $1,500 to start their truck up to come get you. He doesn't. He's been really good to us, but.
I'll tell you what, you know.
Whatever the duck was behind me.
At this point, in my opinion, we're premature to decide if we want to do this out of surplus or we want to do. because we want to see, number one, where, what's the issue on FEMA funds and things like that. At the end of the day, regardless of which fund we take it out of, we'll have to do it as a true-up in July to close the books for June. So we're not under pressure point here right now.
Right.
It's not stopping you from doing anything. So let's get
Right.
where the real numbers are. Figure out where you are, where you are total budget come the end of the year versus what we've got there, and then figure out if we have to shift from surplus or if we have to take it out of select as contingency or whatever.
Right.
But right now, there's a potential that we may not have to foot the whole bill.
There
We
is.
we may end up having to foot it this year, but we'll get reimbursed for it in the next year.
It would be probably 18 months if they declare it, maybe
Right.
longer. I've
I know,
seen
because
2 years out of them.
Yeah, we've gone down that road before. But if we know it's coming, then that makes things a little bit.
The whole reason why I sat with the manager, to be honest, is I did not want to go over on our budget. I hate going over. I like to stay within the lines. And this year I sat with her. I said, I don't know what to do because I think we're going to be over just
Do
maintaining.
you run your
our
budget so lean that you don't have any fat in it?
There's no fat in it.
You have a $1.8 million budget, and you can't find $30,000.
There's not a lot of fat in it, for sure, Joe. Seriously, I wish I could tell you we built in, 4% or 3%, and it doesn't. I mean, our payroll's our payroll. We take the actual numbers we spent last year, we add any increases that we predict this year into it. Sometimes that may give us a little bit, but it's a couple thousand at tops.
But I mean, at the end of the day, these numbers you're admitting are not correct. So it's,
Yeah,
in my opinion,
be off by
we're premature to do. We're premature to do anything at this point. We will have to address it one way or the other.
Yep.
If we're going to be over budget, 'cause we're going to have to do something to shift from someplace to someplace else, and we'll have to do that at the July meeting in order to have it close June's books.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask too is, I know when we used to be on the school, I used to be on the school board, whenever they got towards the end and they knew their budget was low, they froze. They froze everything.
Yeah.
No buying, no anything.
Right.
One of the things I did ask for was, when I saw this in the packet, was the April, where your numbers were, because we got the March ones, but we haven't gotten the April ones.
Yeah.
Can you freeze anything in that budget to help with this?
So, my philosophy's always been as well, I've said it many a time, we save our budget expenses, the stuff that we, normally buy every year, for the very end, to make sure we can pay payroll, fuel, lights, and heat, and any repairs along the way. Well, the repairs added up too much to us, and we still haven't bought, the gloves, the pair of boots, things like that we need. So there's some stuff we haven't that we have to buy. I've got some hoses that we got to buy.
But what I'm saying, I'm asking,
like
the other
that.
thing too is, what is your overtime as far as, is that up a lot more?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is, and just as we think we get a wrap on it, you get 2 people out sick with the flu or something.
And how much of the overtime was attributed to the storm?
So, well, we had some overtime in the storm. I haven't built that in here because that will be.
Because that's what I'm looking at. Things that were storm related, we may have some other relief to help us, albeit that we may not get it this year. But if we know it's coming, then that makes a difference in how we approach what we do on it. So I mean, I don't have heartburn if overtime is used because people are out there making calls because we want that. But if it's something like that we have the chance to recover some of it, then we need to do all we can in order to try and recover those as well.
Right, we put a lot of monies in. Nate had a lot of stuff that qualified. Just running a chainsaw, it may only be $1.25 an hour, but you start adding chainsaw time, generator run time. Our tower ran for 3 days. Down here at East, it ran for 3 days. Our station ran for 2 solid days. Things like that, at X dollars per hour. So we're adding all those things in. If they declare it, I expect it would probably be June to July. By the time they finally get FEMA folks out here, it would be next fall or winter. By the time we see money, it's going to be at least 8 months from there. So probably the full budget year after this.
But that's, I mean, we have that happen on other things.
Yep.
I mean, take for example the Sebago Lake thing. I mean, that took that was three plus years in there. So I mean, we had, we had to expend funds, but we knew we were gonna recoup some of that, so.
Right.
Let's, I think it's premature because we're not at the end of the year yet. Let's see what we have to do to get close, and then we figure it out from there.
Yeah, and that was the crux of the conversation, was just, I want everybody to know, because, I don't want to be over, but probably I'm not going to be able to help, but we're probably going to go over and say, hey, why don't we put this in for this meeting and see what your thoughts are, so.
The sauna that we're sitting in, I think that just bit the dust. That's why we've been sitting in a warm building. So it comes out with that news and we're like.
Yeah.
Gonna be Raymond sauna now?
I mean,
Yeah.
well, you make some money on that.
Did anyone make a phone call to them and have that bill looked at too, that towing bill, itemized or questioned or anything?
He wrote quite the paragraph on it as to why it was that way.
Who did? Nobody called back though and
On
said,
it himself, so he wrote that the reason for the bill being so high was, I don't have that bill with me either, I wish I did.
I think we
Basically
need
was
to
that.
look at this end of June, early July.
Yeah, let's.
No, and thanks for
See where
coming.
your budget is.
Yeah, I just want everybody to hear it and know it.
No, exactly.
We appreciate
No
it.
finger pointing in July going, why did you not tell us?
No, exactly. Yeah, no, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Oh, my thing isn't on. All right, next agenda.
Next is the proclamation.
Okay. Did you all get a chance to read the proclamation for that ceremony? Is it
Move to
not this week?
May
No, it's May 17th
yeah.
at 11:30 at the Veterans Park.
Right, and I had a pre-planned vacation way
Yes.
before that, and I'm sorry I won't be there.
I'll be there.
You'll be there? Okay,
You'll be there.
Rolf.
So Rolf will read it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
I'll be there too, and I'm with that.
I
I didn't see my name in the proclamation.
Well, you
You're
didn't
not
crash.
from where is it? England or British?
Move to accept the proclamation as written.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion, all in favor?
Would
Unanimous?
you hand this to Chair? No, please.
Yep, I'm gonna get my fingers on it.
All right, RSU 14 budget warrant.
This is the annual warrant that lets us send out their ballots.
They have not taken the vote yet
No.
on their budget, and so we have no idea what it's gonna be.
And that is May 15th, I
But
believe.
this just allows.
Yes, 15th at 6:30 at Wyndham High School.
Yep.
Yes, but you have to vote on it first.
And a motion?
Motion to approve the warrant and notice of election calling regional school unit number 14, budget validation referendum.
Second.
20A MRSA, section 1486.
Been moved and seconded, any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Are we up to town manager's report?
No, we're up to changing town office hours.
Where did I see? I don't know.
I,
Where?
Town manager's-
section I.
Keep going.
Yeah, you already did the Chris thing.
Oh, you don't,
It's,
Oh, there it is, I got it.
Yeah,
Changing hours in the town office from opening at 8 a.m. versus 8:30, and then closing
at 6 on Tuesdays.
instead of 7.
Yes,
And it's an increase in time for citizens of 1 hour.
yes. And 8:30, there are no towns around that open that late. We have people often queue up around 8 o'clock and out in the parking lot. And generally, between 6 and 7, we have very few people.
Have you talked to your staff?
I have.
And they're all in favor?
They're all in favor. We'll have to make a few adjustments to their schedules. Cindy will come in an hour earlier, I believe, is what we worked out with one of the days.
and you don't have an appreciable number of people coming in Tuesday nights anymore?
No, not between 6 and 7. As soon as 6 gets there, it tends to peter out.
I mean, this is Maine. People are up at 4:30 in the morning. And do their first errands at 8. Unless you're retired, then you just. Go ahead, Grace.
Do you need a motion first before I can speak, or?
No, go right ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, Grace Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. I just, if anybody works in Portland, and we know from a lot of the information that's been gathered by the Comprehensive Plan Committee this year, very few people that live in Raymond actually work in Raymond, they work elsewhere. And if you live in Raymond, work in Portland, you don't get back here by 6 o'clock if you needed to get to the town office. And so it was years ago when you did away with I don't know who was on the board at that point, did away with the Saturday morning hours that I really needed as somebody who worked elsewhere. And so fine, okay, so it's going to be open one evening a week late. But moving that to 6 p.m. just really feels like it's limiting it. It may not be an appreciable number, but if you're one of that number, you would appreciate it being open until 7 p.m. So again, I realize it's probably the staff would prefer to be done with their day at 6, but so would a lot of people. And again, just trying to be accessible to the public, even if it's just a handful of folks that need that additional time. Not additional time, but extended time, if you will, because of where they have to commute from. That would be something that's needed. And yeah, 4:30, I don't know how many people get up at 4:30, but maybe if they are driving into Portland, they do have to in order to commute and get there and work on time. So I just want to raise that concern. Don't know who else out there is even aware that the change is being made. That's another concern. Thanks.
Well, speaking from my experience, Grace, with my pharmacies, we used to be open till 8 o'clock. Then we cut them back to 7 o'clock. And then we cut them back to 6 o'clock because there just wasn't enough traffic to support paying people to be there. And it had no impact on business. People adapted. As a matter of fact, business grew. So people adapt to what the hours
They would
are.
have to leave work, miss work, in order to get to town hall
Well-
to do something they need to do. And again, if it's just a few people, I understand paying staff to be
Right.
there for just a few people, but those few people are also paying taxes in Raymond
Yep.
and should have access to services.
Any further discussion? Any comments, further comments? Do I have a motion?
I have one question. Did you do I mean, you guys are there all the time. Is there a study done as far as how many people are even coming at that time? Or?
We didn't do it this time, no.
Okay.
But
I mean, you guys know, right? You're there.
It is anecdotal, but most Tuesday nights, they sit and watch each other.
Like nobody or one or two, or is it like?
Maybe one or two.
Okay.
Looking for a motion.
Motion to consider the changes
My computer.
of the open hours at the town office.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Then moved and seconded. Further discussion?
I guess the only thing I would suggest we do is to kind of, see what feedback you get. And if we need to readdress that, then we can readdress it, even if it's to the point of saying, okay, it's just one day a month instead of once a week that we go some extended or whatever. But
I'm sure you get feedback. If there's people that really can only do it during that time, they're going to call and tell you.
But I mean, from one standpoint, the amount of stuff that's being done electronically nowadays has far outstripped the people coming into town hall.
Well, and one of the other issues is that because of the online transactions, we have more and more people that have problem transactions that come into the town office. After 5 o'clock, we can't contact any of the state agencies to get any answers. So we end up telling those people, you need to come back during daytime hours just to be able to get an answer. And if they need a sales tax question, MRS closes its doors for the towns and the citizens at noon. So we send people home for that.
So can we give a long enough notice to people, like a month notice?
Like as of say June.
Put it in the whatever the Winnebago.
Or even if you say, okay, we're going to do it starting July 1st, that way you can post that at the.
Yes. I've already talked with Melissa about if this goes through, having an ad that says when we would start, and that was going to be my next question.
Yeah. But that's, if you do that, then it's, it starts it off at the new fiscal year.
Yeah, the Winnebago.
And it gives time for notice.
All right. All those in favor? Unanimous? All right.
Angus, tell me.
Now it's public comment.
Or have we worn you out?
Okay, selectmen comment. Town managers report.
Need to confirm the dates of the regular meetings, and I've had a request to change the June 25th meeting to June 20th. It's a Thursday.
To June 20th?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's fine.
Everybody? Okay with that?
And then we've got an election coming up, the state primary, the municipal the municipal town meeting, the town candidate ballot, and the RSU budget validation. So people that come to vote, if they are enrolled in a party, will get, did we figure out 6 ballots to vote? Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that we are going to do this year is run ads in the Roadrunner that are encouraging people to come and vote absentee in person, somewhat to take the pressure off Election Day, but more because if they vote in person, or at least come in person and get their ballot, then we won't go to the expense of mailing them, and the postage on a set of 6 ballots right now that are in an oversized envelope is going to be well over $1 a piece. So if we could save a bit, and with the current mail situation,
You're not going to get it anyway.
yeah, I wouldn't trust it personally, but that's me. And we have a drop box out front. It can be returned 24/7.
What was I gonna ask? Oh, when are the ballots gonna be ready?
They should be ready the day after the budget referendum in Wyndham on this.
Okay.
So they'll be ready on the 16th.
On the 16th?
Mhm.
Okay. Great.
And then there is a deadline to change parties of May 24th, if you plan on voting in the primary election. And that's changing from a party to another party. Then there's a deadline of June 6th to request absentee ballots, and June 11th is the election day.
But independents can also vote in this primary, is that correct?
They can, I believe it's still semi-open for this. I haven't seen anything from the state as yet to say otherwise, but that law was changed.
There are 3 parts to the state primary. There's a Democratic ballot, there's a Republican ballot, and then for our section of the state, there's also a green independent ballot. So if anyone is in any one of those 3 parties, they can only get that ballot.
Right.
If someone is unenrolled,
Right.
then they can choose which one of the 3 that they would like to vote.
Great. All right. Anything else, Sue?
Just that Memorial Day's coming.
Wow. Another one. I hope I make it. All right.
A motion to go into executive session, consideration award of scholarship applications, student recognitions pursuant to MRSA 1, Section 405, 6F.
I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone. Executive session?
Move to come out of executive session.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Have a motion?
Move to grant the scholarships, the amount of $500 to the 9 eligible people.
I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Unanimous?
Move to adjourn.
All in favor? We are adjourned.